Thank you, John. God, and please, somebody else help me remember. So this is the book I talked to you guys about that the Four Agreements. I talked to you about it. It was part of a workshop I did in faculty in service a week or so ago. And since then, I have purchased the book on Kindle and I've purchased 6 copies of it and I've sent them to both my daughters, both my stepsons, given one to my wife and one to myself. And I've really been trying to live and breathe these 4 simple agreements. And just to refresh your memory, the 4 agreements are: be impeccable with your word, don't take anything personally, uh, don't make any assumptions, and try to do your best, whatever you do. So I'm going to read just a few paragraphs of the first agreement: be impeccable with your word. The first agreement is the most important one and also the most difficult one to honor. It is so important that with just this first agreement, you will be able to transcend to the level of existence I call heaven on earth. The first agreement is to be impeccable with your word. It sounds very simple, but it is very, very powerful. Why your word? Your word is the power that you have to create. Your word is the gift that comes directly from God. And I hope I'm not offending anybody. The Gospel of John in the Bible, speaking of the creation of the universe, says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word is God. Through the Word, you express your creative power. It's through the Word that you manifest everything, regardless of what language you speak. Your intent manifests through the Word. What you dream, what you feel, what you really are will be all manifested through the Word. And I'm going to read just one more paragraph. The Word is not just a sound or a written symbol. The Word is a force. It is the power you have to express and to communicate, to think and to thereby to create the events in your life. You can speak. Sorry, Ugo. What other animal on the planet can speak? The word is the most powerful tool you have as a human. It is a tool of magic, but like a sword with 2 edges, your word can create the most beautiful dream, or your word can destroy everything around you. One edge is the misuse of the word, which creates a living hell. The other edge is the impeccability of the word, which can only create beauty, love, and heaven on earth. Depending on how it's used, the word can set you free or it can enslave you even more than you know. All the magic you possess is based on your word. Your word is pure magic, and misuse of your word is black magic. So, anyway, I was reading that this morning and I wanted to read it with you guys. And just, I'm trying I'm trying to be conscious of and impeccable with my word and every word I speak. It's not easy, really. There's so much
No.
extemporaneous words, and you say things like, "Did I say that? I didn't even
Yeah.
say that." Anyway, let's go to a safety meeting.
Thank you, Rodney.
Yes,
Appreciate it.
that was really good. Thank you.
Oh, good. Hey, I'm glad you guys appreciated it. Let's see. I want to get us back to a gallery.
Can you tell us the name of the book again,
Yeah.
please?
Yes, it's called. I'm gonna pin myself again, and I'll show it to you, and I'll say it. Okay, so here's me. So it's called The Four Agreements. It's thin. It's $5.77 from Amazon in paperback, or $49.98 in hardbound. Which one do you want to get? I just bought 6 for $36. The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. Okay, now. Are you guys seeing the modules? Somebody answer?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, I'll start us out and then I'll call on a few people to read. This safety meeting today, we're going to talk about the safety data sheet, AKA, that is also known as SDS. What is, excuse me, what's a safety data sheet? SDS. A safety data sheet is a document that contains information on the chemical makeup, use, storage, handling, emergency procedures, and potential health effects related to a hazardous material. The SDS contains much more information about the material than the label on the container. SDSs are prepared and written by the manufacturer of the material. So could you, Catherine, could you read the next paragraph, please?
Yes. Are we here? What is the purpose of an SDS?
That's where we are.
Okay, what is the purpose of an SDS? The purpose of an SDS is to inform you of one, the material's chemical makeup, the material's physical properties or fast-acting health effects that make it dangerous to handle, the level of protective gear you need to wear to work safely with the material, the first aid treatment to be provided when someone is exposed to the material, the pre-planning needed for safely handling spills, fires, and day-to-day operations, and finally, how to respond to accidents.
Dennis, would you read the next paragraph, please?
What information is on the SDS? There are 9 categories of information that must be present on an SDS. There are chemical identity, health hazards data, manufacturer information, precautions for safety handling and use, hazardous ingredients, exposure controls, personal protection, physical and chemical properties, fire and explosion hazard data.
Okay, let's get somebody else in there. Josh, reactivity data.
Even with all of the above information on an SDS, it might not have everything you need to know about a material. For example, health hazard information is usually presented in general terms. Your health and safety specialist should be able to help you find more information if it is needed. Keep going?
Go ahead, keep going.
Oh. Why is an SDS hard to read? Originally, SDS were intended to be used by industrial hygienists, chemical engineers, and safety professionals. Now SDS are used by employers, employees, emergency responders, and anyone else requiring information on a material. Some SDS look very different from others. This is because law specifies the content of the SDS, but the format is left up to the manufacturer of the material.
Kevin, Velasco?
When would I use an SDS?
Yes.
Okay. You should always know the hazards of a material before you start using it. For most people who work with a material, there are sections of the SDS that are more important than others. You should always read the name of the material, know the hazards, understand the safe handling and storage requirements, and understand what to do in an emergency.
Josh, Santana? Okay, Michael Silva then. Michael, you there?
Communication standard. Yeah. STSs form the cornerstone of the standard. The hazard communication standard requires employers to maintain an inventory of hazardous materials, provide employees training on the potential hazards associated with a material, obtain and maintain SDSs for each material on site, establish proper methods and types of labels, and inform contractors of the hazards that their employees may be exposed to in the work area.
And I'll finish with more information. For more detailed information, discuss your question with your safety and health representatives, or visit the website maintained by the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, which is OSHA, at, I guess we don't have that around here, but not hard to find if you want to know more about any SDSs. And then I'll finish with the above evaluations and/or recommendations are for general guidance only and should not be relied upon for legal compliance purposes. They're based solely on the information provided to us and relate only to those conditions specifically discussed. We do not make any warranty expressed or implied that your workplace is safe or healthful or that it complies with all laws, regulations, and standards. Does anyone want to comment about SDSs? Have any experience with SDSs? Want to say anything about SDSs? Questions about SDSs? Has anyone here had occasion to use SDSs? Are SDSs a part of your job? Have you had occasion to use them? Anybody can just unmute yourself.
I did. We would,
Yeah. Go
yeah,
ahead,
when I was
Phil.
at Hayward, we would send over SDS sheets for some of the lumber and all that to the customers when needed.
Right. And pretty much now, when you said as needed, was that as requested, or if an SDS sheet came with, like, for instance, like an ACQ pressure treated or some stripper or something like that would definitely have an SDS with it. If it came with an SDS, would you send it along, or only if requested?
Only if requested.
Okay, gotcha. And then Aurelio, you were going to say something?
I was just gonna say I've never dealt with that.
Okay. So is Dennis the only one? I'm going to
Assume, yeah, he's the only one.
get out of this. I'm going to escape.
Hi, Rodney. Good morning. This is Lindsay. Would you be able to add me to MultiPin? I came in a bit late this morning.
Lindsay, that is easy to do.
Thank you so much.
There you go. How's that? Good?
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right.
Hey, Rodney,
Yes,
I used to do that stuff. I used to put all those books together.
the SDS
When-
books?
Yeah, I used to do all that stuff because I used to be a safety manager where I worked in the mines.
Huh? Wow.
And so we used to have to put all that stuff together and everything that came in from the like whatever we ordered, you know what I mean? Like if we were ordering brand new plates, if we were ordering jaw dies, whatever, the manufacturer always sent a paper, you know, recommendation and stuff. But whatever they didn't send it for, it was my job to look up to see what the hazards of being around, you know, silica and all that stuff, you know. But we used to have to put those books together. I used to have to make meetings every day, every week, and every month. We used to have meetings and stuff, and yeah, doing all that stuff, you know what I mean? I used to take tons of samples of, you know, when we had rain, we had to check the water, see what the runoff was, see how high, you know, different things were. But those SDSs, they're great, especially, you know, when ISO came out, you know what I mean? A lot of people started using it.
Excuse me, it's Linda the captioner. I don't think all the students have their mute on because I'm hearing a lot of background noise. Sounds like someone's slurping something or drinking something or whatever. Could everyone make sure their mute button is on? Thanks so much.
Yeah, everybody's mute button is on, but me and Ugo. Yeah, and Ugo's in the multi-pin. So besides Brenda, yeah, okay. So at any rate, okay, Linda, thanks. So Jose, that was a big company, I take it.
Yeah, they were a big company. It was actually James Hardy.
Okay, so that's, yeah, Hardy, that's a huge company.
used-
It makes Hardy backhoe,
Yeah.
Hardy walls and all that stuff, right? So what I want to say is that safety is really serious stuff, right? Safety is super serious. We all take it seriously, especially as an employer. We don't want our employees to get hurt for a variety of reasons, not the least of which, the last thing we want is anybody to get hurt, but we don't want lost performance and we don't want the liability of people getting hurt either. So that's why safety meetings are so important. That's why insurance is so much around safety, and we have to have these tailgate safety meetings, and that larger companies that can't afford a safety officer actually pay people to just do safety and put together notebooks full of safety data sheets and research the potential hazards for the kinds of stuff that we use. So in the business, in the area of the construction business that I'm in, cabinet making and construction, there are all kinds of SDSs. Used to be MSDSs. That's why I always call them MSDSs. That's manufacturer safety data sheet. So the manufacturer of the product gives you a safety data sheet, which tells you those 9 things it has to have. But the most important thing is what to do if you get exposed to it. Like, what's the immediate remedy? Is it water? Is it not water? So if you're working with a hazardous product or a product that you think might be hazard, like a stripper or some solvents or something that has some chemical part to it, don't hesitate to ask for an SDS. Please, it's your right to do that. And there should be one on site. There should be one on site, or at least somebody should be able to pull up
They
your
should just
supervisor or
Quiet.
foreman. Somebody talking? I gotta mute you guys. Your supervisor or foreman, and for some reason I can't mute Brenda. Why is that? Huh. I can't figure it out. But anyway.
You know, Rodney, I
Yes.
want to say something. It's Catherine. Hey, also, it's so different in the United States than around the world. Like when we do electricity down in Costa Rica, they had 10 years ago, all the wires were the same colors. You know, the wires weren't color coded. So even though it's a pain in the butt sometimes for people in America, and it costs a lot more, and there are a lot more of legal situations, we do sort of set an example for poor workers around the world who are suffering a lot.
Yeah, I agree, and I think you're right. The U.S., I think takes great pains to protect our workers, and more so as the years have gone by, because we didn't have these kind of industrial controls in place that we definitely do now. And your guys, if you're working for somebody that isn't providing MSDSs to you, they can get in trouble.
Ask for it.
So you want to, you can help your employer
Ask
out
for it.
by asking for an MSDS, and insisting that it be on the site. Jose, did you have something to add? Because you keep unmuting yourself.
Actually, it's a law, man. You know, because remember I was telling you about ISO when they came into the program. They wanted to make everything worldwide. You know what I mean? So because before, manufacturers never sent you stuff, they just would send you your bill of lading. Hey, this is what you're receiving, blah blah blah. But when ISO came in, they took and standardized everything across the world. You know what I mean? And so if you're not hooked up with ISO, they won't do business with you. You know, that's why a lot of companies, they're worried about ISO, you know what I mean? The latest one has been the 9000 series, they haven't bumped it up anything, but they're so strict as to where you come into where there's a bucket, and let's say it has a bolt, washer, and a nut in it, they could pay for that meal,
Broke up
and
there. I'm assuming
What happened?
ISO is the International Safety Organization. Is that right?
no, they're not the safety organization, they're standard.
International Standard Organization?
Yes. They standardize everything. So that way, you know how when you're looking for a number, Rodney, and you need to cross-reference it to something, you're looking for an air filter, and to you it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
A part number.
part number or something, you know what I mean? When you switch it over, ISO has made it to where everything is solid now. You know what I mean? They've made it to where you got to have a MSDS, you know what I'm saying? Your book should be, you know what I mean? Your book should be up in the very front of your office. You should have every office that you have, like say what you're sitting in right now, you should have a MSDS book, so that way people need to read it if there's chemicals around you.
I agree. And we're
You know
going to
what I
get
mean?
out.
Have people the freedom to read it, to feel if they're, to feel if they're safe being where you're at. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's why a lot of these stickers, you see a lot of these stickers, you know what I mean, that say known to the state of California and this and that, you know what I mean? There's all kinds of stuff, but
There is. And listen, the only person that's going to be responsible for your safety ultimately is who? Somebody.
Yourself.
Yeah, exactly. You are the only one that's ultimately responsible for your safety. We can give you all the material data safety sheets and stuff that to be aware of and to look out for. We can tell you how to be safe. We can provide you with safe tools. We can put safeties on your tools and guards and all that stuff, but it's all on you, man. It's all on you to work safe. Now, my idea of safety, my personal idea of safety is to be aware of where you and all your body parts are in relation to everything else in the world, especially the hard and sharp stuff. So your relationship, your physical body, everything that's your physical body, how it relates to the rest of the world. And you can be safe. You're aware of that because you don't want to get near sharp things. You don't want to be flailing around, smacking into things or stepping off things or stepping through skylights or breathing fumes that are going to kill you and on or hurt you or breathing in asbestos fibers. It's forever. Safety is everybody's business, but it's ultimately your business to keep you safe. And even if you know, like as employers, we do everything we can to keep you safe and try to conform to everything we can to keep you safe. And we ensure your safety as much as we can. And we have compensation in case, God forbid, you should get hurt. But really, you know, nobody tells you to work thoughtlessly. Nobody tells you to be careless, because that's pretty much what happens when you get hurt. Now, that's not always it. Sometimes something else comes out of nowhere and you get hurt accidentally. But typically, accidents on job sites are caused by the people that get hurt. And they're usually caused by people doing something thoughtless or careless. That's how people get hurt, period. And again, it comes back to you. So you get hurt, you're working for a bona fide employer, so you're going to be covered monetarily, you know, with workers' comp, whatever your medical should be taken care of. But ultimately, responsibility is yours, and it's your body that you don't get to use. You know what I mean? When you run your finger through the table saw and make it an 1/8 inch narrower, who pays that price? Yeah, you pay that price. So we're going to move on from safety and from SDSs, but please, do yourself a favor. Next time you're working on a job and there's some stuff that's kind of chemically or you have a question about, ask for the SDS. Ask whoever's in charge for the MSDS on it and see if they can produce it. We're going to have, I'm going to show a couple of YouTube videos. I want to show one on copper pipe soldering and then one on ProPress. And then by that time, Carol Ashley will probably be here. We'll take a break. And then Carol Ashley is going to come and talk to you for a few minutes. Carol Ashley has a company called Demo to Design, and she's going to be here today with an intern denailing some flooring outside. But she's going to take a few minutes and tell you about her, what she does too. And I got Eric Mendez came in late, right? Eric, I got you. See if anybody else came in. Did Dario?
Yeah, I had some problems with my Wi-Fi.
Okay, gotcha.
Sorry.
I got you. You're here now, and that's what's important. Emmanuel Gutierrez, did you show up? How about Dario Alonso? No? Okay. Just Emmanuel and Dario. And Donna, did you show up? No. Okay. Okay, where were we? We are going to go to sharing a screen, back to sharing a screen. What was I going to show you? Oh. Okay.
People, how to get that so I've been getting asked by a lot of people how to get that perfect looking soldered joint on copper lines that are apparent. And in this video, I'll show you how to do it on a horizontal.
I don't know where this guy's from, but he just called solder. It's solder.
And vertical pipe. This skill allows you to make awesome looking joints that'll make your work look professional and nice to look at if the pipes you're installing remain visible, like on a radiator, for example. Now, before you attempt this, I strongly suggest not to use this method if you're new to soldering copper pipes, because there's a couple of things that could go wrong and I wouldn't want to be responsible for any leaks. So I suggest watching my how to solder copper pipes videos, which are linked in the description box below, to learn how to properly solder prior to doing this. The reason why I'm saying this is because you'll be using a little bit less solder and flux than usual to complete a joint, which for beginners can be a little scary. So it's preferable that you're already comfortable with soldering and that you know that your joints don't leak. There's 3 things that you need to know to get a clean looking joint like this. Number 1 is how much flux to use. Flux cleans the copper and allows for the solder to adhere to the surface. So it basically dictates where your solder will go. And since we only want it inside the joint, we have to be careful about how much we use for this technique. Number 2 is how much shoulder to use. A copper joint can only take so much shoulder into it. Any excess will either come out and make your joint look sloppy, or it'll stay inside the pipe and cause restriction. So it's important to use the right amount of it to get it to look the way we want it. And number 3 is the heat. As with any soldered joint, you don't want to get the joint too hot, as the flux will boil off and your solder won't flow as it should. And it's even more important when using this technique to learn how to control the amount of heat you use. And I'll be showing you how to do so later in the video. All right, so let's quickly go through all the materials you'll need to get a clean looking joint like this. First and foremost, you'll be needing a soldering kit. I won't go through all the tools and materials individually to save time. And like I said earlier, this technique is for those looking to improve their joints, not to learn how to solder. Something I do want to mention is using tinning flux over normal flux if you're new to this, and I'll show you why I recommend it once I get to the fluxing step. Also, you'll be needing a clean rag or some paper towels to wipe any excess flux. This step is crucial to making this work, and if you have a dirty rag, you could contaminate the joint and potentially cause a leak. So make sure it's clean before wiping the joint. And lastly, I suggest having a small inspection mirror to check if the back of the fittings are well covered, and you'll understand why later in the video.
That face that is usually covered by her phone has finally made an appearance.
Deal. All right, so I made a small mock-up to show you guys in real time how to do it. But before I show you how to do it, I want to go through all the steps real quick with you so you better understand what I'll be demonstrating at the end. So as you normally would, you need to clean all the pipe surfaces as well as the inside of the fittings thoroughly with a wire brush and an abrasive pad.
Okay, so I'm going to stop for just a second and chime in here. This is a little bit of an advanced video on soldering. It's not the basics on soldering, but does give you the basics. And the reason why I'm showing you this is because you're going to see a bunch of soldered joints in the job site videos I've made. And after this, you're going to see a pro press. And then we're going to talk, if we have time, about the aspect of plumbing, about whether or not you use a soldered joint or a pro press, and what are the pluses and minuses of each.
Super important that you don't have to do this step, as preparation is 90% of the job.
In any job.
Then come the fluxing part. Like I said earlier, if you're just starting off with this technique, I suggest using tinning flux. Tinning flux will give you better coverage as it contains solder powder in it. I gave a side-by-side visual in one of my soldering videos I made, and we could see the difference between both. The tinning flux itself will cover a good part of the joint without even adding any solder, so consider it cheap insurance. Once the flux would be applied, you'd assemble everything together. If you want to use the same materials as me, I linked everything I used in this video in the description box below, so you don't need to search around. Now onto the actual soldering part. If you're working on a heating system, you're allowed to use lead solder, which will make it a lot easier since it requires less heat to melt and reduces the chance of you burning the flux off. However, if you're working on a potable water line, you'd be using lead-free solder, which would require a little more heat, and that's where it would become a bit tricky to some. I'm also going to show you a few tips on how to apply the solder as it's applied differently for this technique. So we talked about the solder and cleaning part. Now let's talk about the most important step for this technique, which is the heating. In my other soldering videos, you'll see me use different methods to heat a joint, which are all good, but don't apply for this method. The reason being is that if you heat the pipe on a vertical joint, your solder will want to flow out of it and onto the heated pipe, which isn't wanted. We want all the solder we push into it to stay in the joint and have maximum coverage at the same time. And for that, we'll need to pay careful attention to the amount of heat we use and where we apply it. So now that you have a basic idea of how to do it, let's do it together. The first thing we'll do is clean all the pipes and flux them. I'm using a Scotch-Brite pad to give them that nice shiny surface, which I find looks better than emery cloth. You also want to clean the inside of the fitting using either a wire brush or a piece of Scotch pad. That part is all up to you. Good. The amount of flux needed is very minimal since we're using tinning flux. If you're working with normal flux, I suggest using a tad more, but you have the chance of it going on the pipe and creating a clean spot for your solder to go on later. Here's a visual reference of how much I applied in the fittings and on the pipe themselves. So for normal soldering tasks, you'd apply it and not really care if there was any excess, as it would just melt and drip down when heating the joint. But if any flux does run down the pipe, your solder will want to follow it and make the joint look like this. And that's not what we're looking for. With the fittings assembled, you'll notice that there's a small lip of flux where both the pipe and fitting meet. All of this is excess and needs to be removed. So get your paper towel or rag and clean it off so that it's contained in the joint only. Now, the trick to getting it to look the way it does is to not apply the solder where it's visible to the eye. Let me explain. Normally, you'd heat the joint and circle around the circumference with your solder like this, which would leave a visible trace of where it was applied. And to many, it adds a degree of certainty on whether the joint was properly soldered or not. But in this case, we'll be applying it to the back of the joint where it won't be visible to the eye, and rely on capillary action to bring the solder to the front of the joint. To heat the joint, I prefer using a broad flame instead of a pencil torch, as it facilitates the job and makes it a lot quicker.
I want to show you how other golfers like us can unlock 20, 30 yards of extra distance in just one bucket of 40 practice.
Oh, let's do that.
Just
The way I heat it is I start from the opposite side of where I'm applying the solder and work my way around as such without applying the heat to the back. I just let the heat from the front travel to the back. This way I'm sure that the solder will be pulled to the front once the back is hot enough. Now, it's important not to overheat. It's easy to get distracted and overheat the joint, but doing that will boil off the flux and you may need to restart everything if the flux carbonizes. If you have a gyprock wall behind, you might want to use a flame protector, or even an old license plate does the trick. Just get yourself 2 small nails to hang it. So as you're heating, pay careful attention to the joint, and as soon as you see a silver ridge appear, remove the heat and the joint is complete. On vertical joints, your flux might want to drip down the pipe a little bit, but don't worry. Since we're only giving the joint what it needs, there shouldn't be any excess solder going onto the pipe. Once you're done, I suggest using a small mirror to make sure that the back of the joint doesn't have any voids in it, and test the line. If there aren't any leaks, I like coming back with the Scotch pad I used to clean my pipes and scrub everything to give it that nice finish, which makes it look that much better. And you're done. You'll be left with a clean and drip-free joint, which will make your work look professional and separate you from the others. Remember guys, the stuff I used in this video is linked below in the description box. So if you want to try it out yourself, you won't need to search around for what you need. And as always, if you guys liked this video,
so that I'm going to get off this stop share for a minute. Okay, so does anybody have any comments or questions about that video that we just saw? Anybody? All right, so as we later on in the class, as I show you some plumbing, I've kind of got ahead of Jim by way of preface. I know Jim's on chapter 30 on electrical, and I interviewed Rich McCoy last week as far as electrical goes, and I may do some more stuff about electrical, but I jumped ahead to plumbing because we're roughed in this job, and I'm going to show you some plumbing videos. But you're going to see a lot of copper pipe, and it's going to all be soldered.
Rodney,
Yes.
he actually told us to read chapter 31, the plumbing systems chapter, and to do the review questions. So
Oh,
he
good.
told us that on Wednesday.
That was your homework from last Wednesday to this Wednesday? Okay.
Yes.
So good. So this plumbing aspect is germane to what you're doing now. And like I said, you're going to see a lot of copper pipe, and it's all going to be soldered. You won't see any of this next technique in play in this particular job. And one of the reasons is construction plumbing does not use a ProPress, which is a lot faster. The fittings are a little more expensive, but as you can see, soldering joints is labor intensive. So let's go look at another way to do that. And that is how to ProPress.
what's up everybody, and welcome back to another video. So I was browsing on YouTube for ProPress videos, and to my surprise, there wasn't a video covering everything about ProPress and what it's good for. ProPress is relatively new to the market, and a lot of do-it-yourselfers and plumbers still don't know about it, what it's for, and how it works. So I want to clarify that in this video today. I'll also be giving some tips and tricks throughout the video, so whenever you do have the opportunity to use a ProPress system, you'll have them in mind. ProPress could be used for residential, commercial, or industrial applications. It works on copper, plastic, even metal pipes such as iron and stainless steel for potable water systems, heating, or even gas lines. In this demonstration, I'll only be covering copper-to-copper connections for potable water lines. So what exactly is ProPress? To better explain what a Viga fitting is, I cut one open to expose the inner workings so you could better understand what's going on inside. Unlike soldered joints, pressed fittings rely on an EPDM O-ring to ensure a watertight connection. A popular fitting that could easily be compared to are SharkBite fittings, which also have a sealing ring inside, but aren't joined the same way. ProPress fittings, as the name states, are pressed using a battery-operated tool such as this one to create a leak-free joint. These fittings are able to withstand 600 psi of pressure for water applications and 200 psi for air, which is outstanding. There are many different varieties of press tools and kits for each specific job you're doing. For example, if you're pressing a 4-inch copper line, you'll need an 18-volt press tool and not a 12-volt with the correct crimping ring to get the job done. Since there are so many possible combinations, it would be impossible for me to give them all out here. So I'll link a file in the description box below to all the combos for your info. Apart from that, the tool is quite foolproof when it comes to using it, which is why it's so easy to integrate onto a job site. A kit like this is pretty expensive at around $2,000 and can go up pretty quick depending on the batteries and attachments you get with it. But it sure does pay off in the long run for many reasons. However, as much as this sounds great, this system does have some downsides to it like every other system. So let me go through all the pros and cons about it so you can judge by yourself whether this could be something for you or not. Starting with the cons. First up is the price.
How to stop buffering issues anywhere, anytime, instantly.
Price. Like I mentioned before, the price could go well above the 2K mark depending on which kind of kit you're getting. A lot of heating and potable water systems are PEX nowadays, which are far quicker to join by either crimping or expanding them. However, some building codes still require copper mains and branches, and this is where the press tool shines. Something else to consider when talking about cost is maintenance. The tool doesn't need any maintenance per se, but will ask for a calibration after 50,000 cycles by blinking a green light, meaning you'll need to bring it to your nearest service dealer, costing you anywhere from $250 to $500. Adding up to the costs are the fittings. If we compare a 1-inch elbow with 5 other types of fittings, the Vigas are the second most expensive ones under the SharkBites. Once these fittings are pressed, they can't be moved or undone, meaning that if you made a mistake, you'll need to restart it and it could get costly very quickly. PEX, for example, allows for the fittings to be rotated even after they've been crimped, which is one of the many reasons why it's so popular. And lastly, the fact that the fittings rely on a rubber O-ring could cause confusion, as we all know that rubber does deteriorate after time. However, the O-rings are pre-lubricated as they're manufactured, which addresses the drying out problem that these types of fittings have. Now onto the pros and why this tool is such a game changer in the plumbing industry. Anytime working in a commercial building, a hot permit is required. This permit allows you to use a soldering torch at a predetermined time during the day to make sure all the smoke alarms in the work zone are covered or closed, not to activate the sprinkler system. Also, you typically need to wait 1 hour after your last solder to make sure that nothing catches fire. These procedures are costly and time-consuming compared to a press tool, which requires no flames, thus no hot work permit. Something else that makes this tool indispensable when working on copper is the fact that it could press a wet joint. We all know that soldering with water in the pipes is next to impossible, and emptying out the lines could get costly and time-consuming. Yes, there are all sorts of pipe plugging devices to use when soldering on wet lines, but they are very expensive, so these are all things to take into account. Other than that, the tool is super easy to use and learn, creates reliable connections at half the time, and only requires the tool and fittings to complete a joint. Now, let's press some fittings together. Before starting, make sure to have a pair of safety glasses on because pieces could go flying and be dangerous. So, glasses on. So, first off, you'll need to cut the pipe. I highly suggest using any of these types of cutters as they allow for a straight cut. If you cut with a handsaw, for example, it might get cut crooked and not sealed properly because of this. Whichever way you choose to cut the pipe, you'll need to prep it before installing the fittings as you don't want to tear the delicate O-ring that's inside. To ensure this, you'll need an inner-outer deburring tool like this one right here. Deburring does two important things. It removes any sharp edge that might have formed on the outside during the cut and removes the inner burr, which prevents turbulence inside the pipe that could eventually cause leaks. So this step can't be skipped. Once the pipe is clean and deburred, I highly recommend marking the correct depth before the final crimp. So what I do is I use the fitting itself by inserting it all the way and marking it like this, so that I know that while I'm crimping it, it's at the right spot. It's also good practice to verify that all the O-rings are actually there. I've already crimped a couple of fittings with missing O-rings, and trust me, it's not worth the hassle of restarting. If you're working on different size pipes, changing the heads is super simple and quick. Just release the locking pin and change the head for the correct one. Open up the jaws and place them over the ridged part of the fitting. This is where the crimp needs to be done. Now, here's where some beginners make a mistake. The tool needs to stay absolutely straight during the pressing, or it'll partially crimp the fitting and guarantee you a leak. I purposely crimped the fitting with the tool in the incorrect position to show you the difference between both the correct and incorrect way of doing it. So go ahead and give the fitting a last visual to see if it lines up with the line you made, and press the trigger. Most modern press tools will complete the crimp automatically after the trigger has been pushed. So there's no guessing whether you pressed it long enough or not.
This invention is 50 times stronger than regular glue. Keep watching.
At this point, I always like marking an X on each crimp as a visual reference to make sure I don't miss any. And finally, testing. ProPress fittings have a neat feature called Smart Connect, which allows for water or air to leak out of the fitting during pressure tests. Some brands of press fittings don't have this feature and won't let any of these two pass during tests, and would leak afterwards once the walls were closed up. These fittings could easily be identified by a colored mark on the fitting. An unpressed fitting can easily be detected with a water test and fixed on the spot without having to empty out the system, which is really neat. Also, unlike typical soldered lines, there's no need to worry about flushing out any remaining flux in the lines once the installation is done, which saves a lot of time and water. And that pretty much covers the ProPress system for copper water lines. Let me know your opinion on this system by commenting down below why and where you would use it. And as usual, if you guys enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe and
Well, how about that, huh? Was that something else or what? Let me see, because I can see everybody here, and you can just give me a show of hands for people that were just introduced to the ProPress for the first time. Okay, so a few of you had never seen the ProPress. Brenda, Jose, a whole bunch of you. Hugo hadn't seen it. Dennis hadn't seen it. And then any of you not familiar with copper, and what I'm thinking is that you may be familiar with copper and soldering copper, but you may have never seen it so up close and personal. that was a pretty good demo. I got to admit, I was a little put off by the guy's accent at first with the solder versus solder, but the guy is right on. Those were great videos, obviously by the same guy. I somehow lucked out and picked 2 videos by a guy that really knew what he was doing. And you know, in the house that we're going to see videos of, you're going to see copper pipe. And I mean, just off the top of my head, there's going to be at least 100 joints. I'd say at least 100 joints, and very well maybe more. So if you figure a soldered joint is going to take you at least a minute, if not 2 minutes. And you know what? Let's be reasonable. You'll get your chops down, but you're gonna have a couple minutes a joint. So at this point, let's just say 2 minutes a joint. 100 joints, that's 200 minutes. Just the joints, just making the joints, 200 minutes. And I posit, well, you saw that guy in about 2 minutes, he did like 10 or 15 joints. So I'm saying that if you get your prep done, you can probably do a copper joint in 1/5 to 1/10 of the time. So obviously the time saving is unbelievable. The cleanup is non-existent. There is no flux. There's no heat. There's no hot solder. There's nothing like that. And so that makes it really, it's a real plus for that tool. The speed that you're able to do joints, the fact that there's no heat, no cleanup, cost is major. You know, when you can buy, and when you're a plumbing wholesaler and you're buying fittings for, actually it showed it is, was it 91 cents? You can get your fittings down, copper fittings down to 50 cents. And those ProPress fittings are, you know, even in quantity and mass quantities, you're not gonna get them down to about $6 or $7 a fitting. They're thicker copper. They have the O-ring. It costs way more to make them, but they happen really fast. And the one thing I have heard, those are the things you hear about ProPress too, is the cost of the tool. Once you get it, I think it amortizes and pays for itself. But you can use it. It's really good in 2 applications, 3 applications. One is doing copper pipes that are wet. You can't really do them under pressure per se, but you can do wet copper where you cannot solder wet copper. You can do it where you don't need heat. So there are some conditions where you have copper pipe near things that you don't want to heat up or scorch, like he protected that wall with the license plate. There are some conditions where you're soldering places where your soldering flame might combust something. It might light something up, which would be a bad idea. And then the large pipe I'm going to tell you about. But stopping for just a second, in case you don't know, there are 3 types of heat. 3 types of heat. And I'm going to tell you what they are. So I'm sure some of you know. First type of heat is radiation. That's the rays from a heat source like the sun that are invisible rays. And if I put something in front of the sun, it blocks the rays. It's not hot on this side. The second kind is convection. And that's a fire source that heats the air above. So that's heated air above combustion. That's convection heat. And then there's conduction. And that's what we're seeing in this copper pipe, is conduction, is that you heat the copper is a very good conduit for heat. It heats the pipe all the way around, it conducts that heat and allows that solder through capillary action, which travels along the flux. It allows it to go all the way around the joint. From just touching it in one spot, you can see that solder go all the way around. It's kind of magical, really. Soldering copper is an art form that plumbers have developed, and the really good plumbers are really good at it. And then I guess I'm going to go back to, I'm going to remove my pin, go back to gallery view. Come on, give me a gallery view. Give me a gallery view. Oh man, I got John Sesser. John, I'm talking. Why is John up there? Anyway, so the one thing I wanted to say is that that large pipe, like a 2-inch water pipe, that's a bear to solder. So you've got plumbers soldering 2-inch water pipes. You have got very experienced plumbers, and there are plenty of larger buildings that that would have a piping size that large, and it's a bear to keep to solder a pipe that big, to keep it hot enough to get the solder to go without burning it. So ProPest for large diameter pipes is really the ticket, and on the other hand, it's the most expensive. So you saw that 2,000 entry level and all the way up to 4,000 or 5,000. And it was probably the jaws for a 2-inch pipe could be a $500 or $600 fitting to go onto the end of your tool. So I've got a few minutes after 10, 7 minutes after 10, and we're going to break until 10:20. We're going to come back at 10:20, and I should be able to introduce Carol Ashley to you. So I'm going to take myself out of the grid and see you back here at 10:20. Okay, everybody's lovely faces back at 10:20. Thank you very much.
All right.
And John, you are going to. All right, we're back. We're being recorded again. And Carol Ashley is here. She'll be in here in just a minute, and she'll be talking to you about her business, which is Demo to Design. She's into the reuse aspect of construction, recycle, reuse. She's done some incredible things. She just took me outside and had me open up one of our containers where she has stored a small house that she had built out of completely salvaged materials, and I guess it was on casters, and we put it together, we being the Construction Academy, here in 2014, and I think it's been on 2 sites on casters, and I think she deconstructed it. She deconstructed the house made out of deconstructed materials, and it stowed it in this container, and it stows in a very small area. And then I think she can show us a couple pictures of it. In the meantime, before Carol gets here, so I don't start something new, I'm going to go ahead and pick back up and read you another couple paragraphs of the 4 agreements. Let's see, domestication and the dream of the planet. So as far as being impeccable with your word, I'm going to read another 2 paragraphs. The word is so powerful that one word can change a life or destroy the lives of millions of people. Some years ago, one man in Germany, by the use of the word, manipulated a whole country of the most intelligent people. He led them into a world war with just the power of his word. He convinced others to commit the most atrocious acts of violence. He activated people's fear with the word. And like a big explosion, there was killing and war all around the world. All over the world, humans destroyed other humans because they were afraid of each other. But I'm going to stop right there, and because Carol's come in, and I'm going to introduce you to Carol. And tell me your intern's name. Alex. Alec or Alex? Alex. Okay. So Carol, come on over. Come on over here and stand behind me, and I'll get masked up for you. Sorry.
Well, I'm going to unmask for the class.
Yeah, you guys do that, and I'll mask up.
Okay.
And then, so I want to introduce you first.
All right.
And then I'm gonna let you talk to CT 111. Okay, so this is Carol Ashley, and like I said, she has a business called Demo to Design. And let's get you. What do we get? Carol doesn't need to look at that screen. Do you want to look at that screen, Carol? Do you want to look at the gallery view? Is that what you want to look at? You tell me.
Oh yeah, I prefer seeing the gallery view.
Okay, because they can hear you, and I'm hoping that ASL people can hear you. And why don't we put you right here, and you can have the background to the whiteboard, okay?
Okay. Here we go. All right, great.
Let me move the camera around a little bit, and then I'm going to go ahead and go back to gallery view. I don't know why I can't get a big gallery view.
Hey, there's the class. Hi, class.
Now I see
Hi,
John.
Carol.
Hey,
Hey, John, how can I get a bigger gallery view and get your huge face
it's
off there?
John.
How can I
It
do
is
that?
me.
Hey, good to see you.
Any ideas for me, John?
I go up in the top right of my screen and
Yeah.
click on view and then select gallery.
Yeah, that's what I got.
But yours may work
No,
a little different than mine.
I unpinned myself and I should have gallery view. I should have a grid view.
It's hot in here.
So here's our grid view. So
Okay.
can you guys all see Carol? And John, let's mute John. So if he's coming from speaker view. Okay, here we go. View, speaker view. Okay, here we go. Gallery view. Now we're talking. I had meeting controls were hiding it. So okay. So I'm assuming you guys can hear and see Carol. Carol's under my my window, and then she can look and see you guys. And then Carol, you're on. It's on Carol. Here it is.
Okay, so I'll take this off. Wow. Well, it's so great to be back here in this classroom. I love it. I've taken classes with Mr. Utt, and they're memorable. In fact, I have video too, Mr. Utt. I don't know if you know that. I have video of you teaching.
That's evidence in the court of law.
So I've been working with the Construction Academy of City College for many years, and I've had a business called Demo to Design for 20 years here in Santa Barbara. And what I do is I do deconstruction. I go on site and I take apart buildings, and then or I identify materials with contractors, and they take those pieces apart and set them aside for me, because of sometimes that's the best way to avoid any legal involvements. And then because of liability, then I warehouse those materials and I market them, and I have a very strong internship program with UCSB. I've been working with 4 to 5 interns a quarter for over a decade from the different departments over there. So they have been helping me, especially at this time, to be able to create a Google Drive online, so that with Zoom, we're able to all be on the same page, literally. And so I just wanted to, let's see, I don't even know why I'm in front of a whiteboard, but I love it, so I'll use it. So I'll just write Demo to Design, because that's the name of the business. And you can look it up online, demotodesign.com. And I'm Carol Ashley. And I will tell you that this is a passion of mine. We're complying with COVID considerations by checking our temperatures and making sure that we're masked when it's necessary. Anyway, because we are pioneers in the concept of reuse, we are what we do is I give them the students access to a drive, and I call it the Reuse Depot. Everything has a Western flair to it. And so we have, they have a classwork corral where it's interactive. They can enter questions and ideas and links that they find during the classes that are of value to other people. And so everyone has access to that. And we also do quite a bit of video watching, and then we have something called the Learning Nuggets, which are the 4 pillars of reuse. And those 4 pillars would be what? Assessment, cost benefit analysis, supply, and demand. All right, 4 pillars. Now, the number one goal in this business is figure out where it's going to go before you pick it up. Because I don't want to hold on to a cast iron sink for very long, walking around figuring out where it's supposed to go. And that applies to everything in this industry. So we are pioneers. I've been pioneering in this particular field for over 40 years, starting as a teacher in North Carolina, teaching environmental drama to middle school students and creating trash sculptures out of materials that we found, Tyrannosaurus Rex with teeth made out of cigarette butts, and a man at the piano with dryer lint for hair. And so we've been very creative, but now we're expanding, and I realize that we really need zero waste is the key. We want to make sure that the materials are not wasted, because the hierarchy is reduce, reuse, recycle. That's the sustainability hierarchy. And in fact, this class that I'm teaching now is called Deconstruction and Reuse, and it's part of a 2-class module, sustainability module. The other class is repurposing and refurbishing, which will come right after this. You're welcome to join anytime. It's free, it's online. It's from 6 until 8:30 on Monday evenings. And so it's called Deconstruction and Reuse in the City College catalog. So today, I'd like to bring my intern over here for just a second. This is Alex. Alex has been working with me for, okay, now you can go back.
Yeah, now get out of the frame, Alex.
No, because I don't have my mask on, so I don't want to be a challenge here. But he actually, well, you know what? Come back up here and tell him, introduce yourself, Alex, please. So.
Hi, I'm Alex. I'm a recent graduate from UC Santa Barbara, and I've been working with Carol for the past 2 months. She has a great internship program. I'm currently taking her class through the City College and highly recommend it.
Thank you, Alex. That's great.
What's the evening that you're free?
That's Monday night, 6 to 8:30 p.m.
And what's it on?
What's it on?
Yeah, how do you access it?
Zoom. I give them a Zoom link.
Okay, Monday evening.
Yeah, 6 to 8:30. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so where was I? Little walk through the past, and then bringing us to the future. So it's a 2-class sustainability module. If you take both classes, then you get a certification, and you also get a digital badge that is a pretty new concept that City College is offering, that goes onto your social media, so that when an employer actually looks at sees your digital badge, they can open it up and see what classes you've taken. So that's really great. It's very cool. It's part of the Career Skills Institute, which is the continuing education aspect of City College. It's a non-credit class. This is a credit class. And the non-credit classes are ungraded, and they're really pretty flexible, because it's mostly for those people who are expanding their learning, not just getting their fundamentals, which is what you're doing. And I acknowledge that, because I've taken a lot of construction classes. I can't get enough of that funky stuff. I love it. I didn't know until I was old how much I love construction. But we built a door in Mr. Utt's class, and we what else did we do? We learned how to frame a door. Oh my gosh! Somebody buys a door from me, and I say, do you have somebody who can frame that in for you? I hang the door, and they go, oh yeah, Pablo says he can do anything. I went, you look him in the eye, and I go, and you say, Pablo, do you hang doors? And if he says, I can do anything, then you get somebody else, because you need somebody who says, yes, I hang doors. And the only way you can do that right is if you take Mr. Utt's class. Wow. So let's see, what else shall I say about the classes?
Oh,
about the
Tell us about the
casita.
classes and tell us about your casitas, but also please, if you wouldn't mind mentioning, when I had you over to the job that I'm doing, what was that about?
Oh, wonderful. Thank you for reminding me. Okay, so first of all, Alex, do you have the mic? I would like to show them the casita. Are you just gonna have this be recorded and then I can see it later? Is that what's happening?
Yeah, this will be on YouTube. You'll be able to pull this up
Okay,
anytime you want.
excellent. All right, because I want to show you guys a picture of the custom casita, which is a not a tiny home. It is a permit exempt structure that was built by City College Construction Academy many years ago for me from my reclaimed building materials. So I'm going to show you that in a second. But first, a word from our sponsor. And that is deconstruction. So first we realized that you don't want to demolish because tearing things down costs energy, costs money. It might be faster to clean up a space and have it available for new construction, but it's not ideal. It's not best for the environment. It's not best for the protection of the resources and also a lot of those resources that are built in, that homes are built from from years back, are much more, have a much greater quality than those that we can get nowadays. For example, I have someone coming to my warehouse today who has just discovered that new doors are all made from glued together lumber that has a veneer on it. And so it looks really great, but it's not solid wood. It's what they call solid core. And so it's with my doors that are from old houses and old commercial sites, those materials, if you need to cut a door from 83 inches down to 80, as long as you have a rail at the bottom that's going to be able to maintain the integrity of the door, you know it's 9 inches normally, and then if you get down to 7, that's still okay. So that means you could go 7 or 6 like that. Anyway, that's so what I did recently was I went to Mr. Utt had a is doing a remodel on a house, and he invited me to see if there were any materials that would be valuable for reuse. And that's actually kind of a little bit of a two-pronged thought, because the materials might be of value, but finding a reuse setting for them can sometimes be a challenge. That's what my interns and I are doing now. We're developing a demand for those reclaimed materials with the designers and architects, so that they can write that into their plans that they want to use reclaimed material. It gives them more points. And so Mr. Utt was good enough to provide me with a bay window. He even paid for his workers to dismantle that bay window so that I could accept it, because it was space, it would take up too much space in my warehouse. So now it's nice and neatly tucked in there in 3 parts. And I got a farmhouse sink. It has a ding in it, but hey, you know what? It's gorgeous, and it works perfectly fine with a great faucet. There's no need for that to be disposed and pay to have it disposed in the trash. It has value, and it's called the embodied energy. The embodied energy of a material is what it takes to be able to grow the tree, harvest the tree, transport the tree, mill it, and market it. And if you can just reuse the lumber that is already there, then you don't have to go through all that. It doesn't cost as much, and the material is sometimes a lot better quality. Anyway, is that good?
You're doing great.
Okay, I want to show them a picture of the casita.
Yes, yes. that was
So this is the permit exempt structure that, let me see. I don't know. Can you see if they're able to see this?
Get a little closer even.
Okay,
Yeah, that's good looking shot.
all right,
Everybody
great.
can see that. Ugo,
So-
I wonder if Ugo can see that because he's got a smaller screen because of his interpreters, but hopefully he can see that too.
I can see it. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for that feedback.
What'd
So
she say?
she said she can see it.
Good.
So I wanted to tell you that these are doors that are all around. They're 1.75 inches thick. They're exterior doors. And so they provide plenty of insulation just by themselves. And then
Your screen turned off, Carol.
oh, okay, thank you. So the clear story that's above the doors is it is actually windows that were side lights for an entry door, and they work really well to bring in more light, and it's facing south, so that is a green standard too, to bring in more light. And then you'll notice that the roof is it still showing?
Yes.
Is galvanized. That's a lot of times I have to buy that material new because a reused galvanized is not good for roofs. You have to make sure that they're waterproof. And I always like to put a clear corrugated in the center of it to act as a skylight. So yeah, so if the interns are creating a new website for me, and this is a clickable house. So when in Photoshop, if anybody knows Photoshop, that's a fabulous skill we need. When you open, click on the doors, they open, and you see me inside pulling up flooring, which today I'm going to be going in just a few minutes with Alex out to denail. We're going to do a denail, floor denailing exercise. So I wanted you to see this. This was built by the City College Construction Academy.
Show us what it looks like now.
What it looks like now?
Mhm.
Oh, yeah. So, space in Santa Barbara is so expensive. And in fact, what happened was that the space that I had where I had this was, excuse me just a second, I'm going to find the pictures that I just took. All right. So we had to, when I moved from the site where this was, I had to dismantle the casita. And so what I did was I dismantled it, and it is in a storage container here at City College, just waiting for it to be reassembled. For some reason.
You just took them. You should be at the very top.
It's-
Most recent pictures.
Well, one would think that would be so for
You're
some
scrolling the
reason.
wrong way for starters.
Okay, I don't
Go
know.
like this, and that's gonna bring.
No. Mr. Ott, I do know how to use this phone.
Could have fooled me, but okay, just kidding.
All right, so, yeah, I
Did
don't
you not
know.
Find it?
I didn't find it.
You just took them.
Yes, sir.
Well, can't you just go to your gallery and have the first thing that come up?
It's not happening.
Huh.
We'll just forget it for right now.
So anyway, it's now
It's
in a storage
tucked-
container about a foot deep, right? About 1 foot deep in the length of the container, and that's it.
And every single piece of it was marked when we disassembled it, and I took video of how it went together, because this is the key for the future. It's called designing for disassembly. And that is the bottom line for my business is zero waste. And that's the goal that we have. We want to make sure that whatever materials we're using the highest quality that we can. A lot of times those are the older materials. Sometimes there are issues with them. We're discussing those barriers and issues and figuring out how we can move around those. That's what we're using to do that in our class is something called SWOT, which is the SWOT analysis program. That's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And so we go through all that and we brainstorm and figure out, and then we move forward and we're just expanding purpose of this class that I'm teaching is to expand the concept of reuse exponentially. And with that, I'm going to exit. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure being with you. I look forward to seeing you again. Bye.
Good job,
Carol.
Good job, Carol. Way to go.
Oh, I love it. All right, let's go to work.
Yeah, while they go to work, Carol, go to work denailing,
Yes,
And then you'll be here, right? You're here for a while?
till 12.
All right, so
If
then,
you want me back, just let me know.
okay, and then, yeah, I will.
See
Well,
if they have any questions.
Good
please.
job. Yeah, and do you have any questions for Carol right
No,
now?
no, I'll come back.
Okay, yeah, if you have any questions, let me know. Hang on to them, and then we'll get, excuse me, we'll get Carol come and answer them. I've known her for a long time, and she started this business, I don't know, I can't remember how many years ago. And I thought it was a good idea at the time, and I still think it's a great idea. As a matter of fact, it's a fantastic idea, and it's kind of like most builders and contractors that I know are somewhat at war with deconstruction, deuse, because at some point you don't want to deal with old stuff and denailing stuff and stuff that might be damaged and, you know, maybe not the right material, but maybe you're going to make it work. So most of us just want brand new material, and brand new material is going to generate waste. So anytime that we can reuse, and at this point, I'm not using so much reusing, or I'm not using used material in projects as I am when I deconstruct, trying to make sure that everything that appears to be usable is going to get will not get thrown into Marburg's dumpster. For instance, when we demoed the project I'm on now, which Jay will be, I'll show you some plumbing in it. We had some pretty nice 6x beams, I think 6x8, 6x10, maybe even 6x12 beams that were the header on the porch. A pretty long beam and some nice 6x6 posts. They're just beautiful for not clear, but as close to clear as you can get in construction grade, dry, older, nice tight grain. And there's just no way that those were going to get thrown away. So those stayed on the site for a while. And as a matter of fact, Peter Kornbluth, that owns Construction Plumbing, got them. I want to show you this before I forget, because we now know that Ugo doesn't have this big pin screen. He's got a quarter screen. So I'm hoping that by getting closer, I can see, kind of limited to how close I can get. But here's that thing of Carol's, the deconstruction and reuse, the online Zoom class she does from 6 to 8:30 on Monday evenings. If you're interested, it's demotodesign.com.
Excuse me, Rodney.
Yes.
What was her second class? The repurposing and refurbishing? Is that what it was?
Yeah, and truthfully, I can't remember whoever's talking. I can't see who's talking. But really, shoot Carol an email, demotodesign.com, Carol Ashley, and ask about that, because she's got some really valuable stuff.
Yes, I like to upcycle, so I think that sounds very interesting to me.
It is. It is, because we're all denizens.
Yeah.
Of the planet. All of us, we live here, right? That's a duh. And we're all responsible for the planet and for keeping our part of the street, our side of the street clean. And really, I'm a absolute recycle. I'm on recycle. I recycle everything. I even wash out the jars and stuff that we're throwing stuff away. I get the stuff in a baggie that's going to get thrown away and wash them out. I just don't believe in throwing anything away that can be recycled. No plastic gets thrown away, no glass, no paper. And we in our RVing, it's amazing how many RV parks don't have recycle. So we carry recycle around with us. When we are RVing at Rancho Oso, they recycle glass and plastic, but not cardboard or paper. So we take all our cardboard and paper home with this. I really try to not throw anything in the trash that can be recycled. This is just an aside, and then I'm going to show you some videos. I was just getting the keys out of my truck and I saw this and I thought I'd show you because I had never seen this. I bought this for 70 bucks, Sharper Image, which is a pretty gimmicky site, right? They've been around forever. I'm sure you all heard of Sharper Image. They have some cool stuff, but these are nighttime driving glasses and they're killer. They totally reduce the glare and yet they brighten and sharpen stuff up at night. And I'm starting to, my vision is starting to, it's not what it used to be. So if any of you have that problem, these Sharper Image night vision glasses, I highly recommend them. They're one of the best 60 bucks I ever spent. Okay, now, where was I? I'm going to finish what I was reading and then I'm going to show you some videos. So I was telling you about how powerful the word is, right? And about someone in Germany, Hitler. He convinced others to commit the most atrocious act of violence. He activated people's fear with the word, and like a big explosion, there was killing and war all around the world. All over the world, humans destroyed other humans because they were afraid of each other. Hitler's word, based on fear-generated beliefs and agreements, will be remembered for centuries. The human mind is like a fertile ground where seeds are continually being planted. These seeds, the seeds, are opinions, ideas, and concepts. You plant a seed, a thought, and it grows. The word is like a seed, and the human mind is so fertile. The only problem is that too often it is fertile for the seeds of fear. Every human mind is fertile, but only for those kinds of seeds it's prepared for. What is important is to see which kinds of seeds our mind is fertile for and to prepare it to receive the seeds of love. Amen, brother. I just love this book. So thanks for letting me share with you. All right, let's share some screen. And let's hide the floating meeting controls. And then let's go to, what am I going to show you? Okay, let's go to modules. Tell me, you guys are seeing modules. You see my Canvas shell?
Yep, we're seeing it.
All right, good. Let's go to J. Allen 1. Okay, so hello, CP111. It's 111. Okay, so hello, CP111.
Can't hear anything.
10 something in the morning, and we're on a man gun job, and in front of us is J. Allen. Did you say you can't hear anything?
Yeah, it's incredibly low if there is something.
Okay, well, I've got Jay mic'd up, so hopefully, and I'll turn me up and see if you can, because I hear me perfectly. So,
Yeah, you know what? He's right, Rodney. It's very hard to hear you. We can hear Jay Allen,
okay.
but it's very, very, very hard to hear you.
Okay, well, right now, that's just the way it is. And I'm going to try to turn the volume up here when I'm talking, and let's see how it goes.
Okay, thank you for doing that.
How long, Jay?
35 years.
35 years. And hopefully we're all getting this 4x4 or 5x5 sound wise. So 35 years of constructive plumbing. Could you just tell us a little bit? All right. So my last bit, am I coming in super low?
It's a lot better.
Okay. Good. Better is good.
Thank you.
Hey, no problem. About how you got into it and what you did and what you do and stuff like that?
Yeah, well, my name's Jay Allen. I work for Construction Plumbing. We've been in business.
Okay, is this coming in 5x5?
Yeah.
Okay.
Since 1983, and I've been with the company since 1986. And from 1978 to 1985, I was in the solar energy business here in Santa Barbara. And at the end of 1985, the Reagan administration had cut the federal tax credits and state tax credits for solar energy, and the business all across the United States just completely fell apart. And so I began looking for a job in 1986, and I found an ad in the local newspaper here in Santa Barbara to apply for a job as a plumber. And so I did, and I was hired. And for the first 12 years with construction plumbing, I worked as a plumber out in the field. For the last 23 years, I have been production manager. And so that's where I'm at. It's hard to believe I'm even saying that I've been for 35 years.
I remember when you were a plumber in the field.
A long time.
Remember that our yard on Quarantina,
Yeah, playing basketball.
playing basketball and shooting cars with water balloons.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. So
So you worked as a plumber for 12 years.
that's right.
And basically learned the trade on the job.
That's right.
You didn't come there as a plumber.
No, on the job training. I learned from guys who had been in the company for a while who taught me.
So you went to work as basically, I'm gonna assume here, you went to work as a laborer, plumber's laborer. And
Well, actually, I started doing copper right away because I'd been soldering copper for 8 years in the solar business. So Peter knew that I could solder copper after he looked at my work for a couple of days. So all I did for the first 2 or 3 years was solder copper, and I had the greenest hands. I could never get the flux off of my
you
hands.
were the guy.
I was the copper guy for about 3 years.
Which I want to circle back to this when we
Mhm.
start looking at the plumbing, but I want to talk a little bit about soldering copper versus Propex.
Hmm.
Not Propex, but what's the Kerper?
It is Propex. We don't use Propex. I have no
And you have no Propex tools?
I have no Propex tools. I don't. Well, I'll take that back. We use PEX tubing for drinking.
So I misnamed Propex. It's actually a ProPress is what I was what I meant. And PEX tubing is a whole other way of plumbing with the flexible tubing that we didn't talk about. And we may talk about that, but not today.
Water supply only.
No, it's not the Propex. Actually, that's the wrong, that's not it. It's the one that instead of soldering.
Right, you crimp it together.
Squeeze it on, is that called Propex?
I don't know, to be honest with you.
Pro something, I can't believe, that's another thing that goes real.
Yeah, it's a material that we don't use. We
Pro something, so you guys do not.
do not use it. No, we do not. We solder all our copper.
Okay, so, because we're gonna talk about solder copper and this thing, it's not Propex, the tool, goddamn it.
Yeah.
Ishmael, is yours here?
I don't know.
It might be gone, but John will know. Anyway, we'll talk about that other way of putting copper pipes together. But in the meantime, so you started with some knowledge, so you weren't right at the bottom.
No.
And as you went, you learned the plumbing trade from the guys that knew the plumbing trade. that you
That's
worked
right.
with.
That's right.
This is how a lot of us is pretty much.
Yeah.
Most of how I learned the trade. And then at what point did you become kind of more than a plumber, which is what you're not really a plumber now. You mean your background in plumbing, you know a lot about plumbing, and I'm sure you learned as you went.
Right.
And doing jobs, this stuff always comes up. You're just constantly learning. Nobody ever, this is my opinion, nobody ever knows it all.
No, not at all. There's always stuff to learn.
What was the turning point for you to get out of the field and into scheduling?
Well, it was really Peter, the owner of the company. Peter had got to the point where he was trying to do everything himself, and as the company grew, he needed someone else to help with scheduling. And I was the guy that he chose out of the 20-some guys we had.
Well, you were the guy with personality and intelligence, in my opinion, to do it, because this is a job you do owner interface a lot.
Right.
As a matter of fact, you interface the company these days. Peter's been
Right.
getting up in his place.
Right.
And then you have to be able to work with employees. And you have to have the respect of the employees. And it's nice that that you are a plumber, not just some guy who
Right.
got a construction management degree out of Caltech.
Right.
So this is a point that I want to bring up, and that is the owner of the company. As you'll hear in a minute, they have 83 plumbing jobs going on right now. It's a lot of jobs. And the owner of the company is a really good friend of mine. He's been doing it since '83, and we shared. He was my tenant. I had a lease on a space, on Quarantina, where Marburg has their operations now, and Peter's offices and yard were there. And God dang it, what the heck was I gonna tell you about this? Oh, so, you know, Jay runs the work. So Peter's the face of the company, really. He's the owner of the company. And for the since the pandemic, he's really been, his wife is, you know, he doesn't want any exposure for her. She could be compromised really easily. So he's been pretty much doesn't come in. Nobody doesn't go to his office. I don't think he's been in his office for a year. So Jay is the face of the company a lot. And Jay is not some guy that Peter hired from Cal Poly to run his construction business. Now, that's not to say that a guy who's gotten a construction management degree from Cal Poly is not a guy you want to hire. Quite the contrary. It's just that a guy like Jay, who came up from the ranks, through the ranks, and understands plumbing, commands the respect of the people that he tells what to do. Because make no mistake, when you have a supervisor, that supervisor gets to tell you what to do. Well, hopefully they're like me and it's in the form of a request. We ask you to do things, but really we're telling you. And Jay's the guy.
Cal Poly, and then don't get me wrong, that's not a bad way to go. It's just that
Yeah.
nothing that replaces in the field experience.
That's right. That's right. And I think I have the right temperament to deal with all the employees and the
Yeah, so
clients.
tell us about that. Tell us about that. What kinds of things like today? What's it like today?
Well, what's it like today is I feel a tremendous amount of phone calls. And now with the cell phones, it's so easy to reach people. With text messaging and email as another form of communication, I have to look at all three things all the time.
All the time.
All the time.
And all on your phone.
All on my phone. Yeah.
Text.
Especially now with COVID, I don't go into the office anymore. So I'm doing pretty much everything on my phone or on my computer at home.
Nobody goes, somebody goes there.
Lisa goes to answers phones, but she's the only one in there except for Mike.
What about Bob? You guys still got Bob?
Bob, yeah, Bob is working from home as well.
He's a beautiful stone.
Yeah.
And so today, what's just kind of describe your day?
Well,
Up to now, and then what you anticipate doing.
well, the phone started ringing about 6:45. I got up about 6:15 and sent some material lists to our materials manager in the shop, Mike, so he could get some material to the job sites for a couple of projects today.
Let's stop for just a second, because the infrastructure of construction plumbing is, they have a physical plant. They're building, actually, you guys own the whole lot, the house in front. On an alley, it's residential, is it zoned R2 or something like that?
It's, yeah, it's, yeah.
Anyway, they have a two-story shop, a yard and offices above and inside storage below, and we keep parts and
That's right.
pipes and all that stuff. What kinds of stuff do you stock?
We stock everything that we use. It's not something that we've always done, but for the last 2 years we have.
You
It's,
buy in quantity and stock?
we buy in quantity and we stock it, and it's much more efficient for us to have the plumbers make lists for material the day before, or I make material lists a couple days before, and we have it delivered to the plumber on the shop, on the job, so that he's not standing in line at the supply house waiting for parts.
Your guy make a list of what they need, goes to the shop, the guy pulls it from your stock.
And delivers it to the job.
Oh, that's great. And
Yeah.
then you can have Smart deliver, or does he go get that?
Yeah, well, he'll pick up some things from Smarten, or sometimes we have job site deliveries. If it's a big job, we usually have it delivered directly from our supplier.
So that's pretty darn efficient, and it also allows you guys to make what your material houses can make more compared stuff.
That's right.
So it's a great way to go.
That's right.
But you've also got to have the work.
Yes.
You got to have the work to justify that kind of expense and deal with all that stuff. So what about your day?
What about my day? So it started off doing that. I went out to Hope Ranch at about 7:15 and laid out a couple plumbers on a new job that we're doing. I answered phone calls basically after that until I got here.
Stop. You said you laid out a couple of plumbers. Could you just explain what that means?
Yeah, in this particular job, it was just, they were doing some demolition on the outside. They're demoing the whole back patio, which was an outdoor kitchen and a fire pit. And the new owners didn't like the design, so they completely were gonna rip it out. We had to safe everything off. We turned the gas off at the gas meters, and then we capped off the line in the ground so that when they come out with a backhoe and start ripping everything apart, we don't tear the gas and the water lines out of the ground and do any damage.
They're not gonna be spewing water.
That's right. That's right.
I mean, it's one thing ripping the lines out when they're dead. It's
Yeah.
another thing having live gas.
Right.
and-
So we call that safing off a job before it starts.
And you needed to do it for me here when we did demo here.
That's
And then,
right.
Okay, so you laid that job out, that particular job, and then what happened?
Then I was on the phone answering more calls about, work in progress on other projects that we're working on. And then I came here.
And then what are you doing from here? Come on, we get-
From here at 12 o'clock, I have a meeting on a new job walk with Peter, the owner of the company, to do some more layout.
So brand new job,
A brand new job.
job that you guys have,
Yeah.
and they're gonna start laying out, and what state is that job in now?
That job is, it's actually another remodel. We did the house about 2-3 years ago. The owner sold it, some new owners came in, and now they're doing a remodel on part of the house that was never remodeled before.
It's not, is it as extensive as this?
Yeah, I'd say probably about the same.
Huh.
Yeah, they're adding a couple bathrooms and a kitchen in a downstairs area.
Slab on grade?
It's slab on grade.
So let's talk a little bit about that. So this job is slab on grade, and you guys got me saved off here at one point. And then at one point, when we were still in the dirt, and still digging the foundation, before we could even start tying steel and really getting the forms together, we needed you guys out to
Right.
get the plumbing stubs, to do the stub out.
Right.
For the waste. Right?
Yeah, yeah.
Waste and get a vent stack going. Could you explain that a little bit? Is that how that process works?
Well, we start off with a set of plans, and first we have to determine where all the exterior and interior walls are. We have to figure out where finished floor height is,
Hopefully with some help.
with some help from someone running the job, some sort of a super. One of the most important things we have to do, though, is find out where the existing sewer is, and we have to find out the depth of that, so that we make sure that when we're laying out our new sewer lines, that we are going to have the proper height and fall to reach the existing lateral.
So you guys all remember that, right? 1/4 inch.
Yeah.
Shit rolls down, excrement rolls downhill.
2%. 2% grade.
2% grade.
Yeah.
But really, that's the ideal, and more is okay.
A little more is okay. You try not to get much more than that, because you don't want the water to pass up the solids. You want it to kind of float along.
You know, it's so great to be as old as I am. So I'm going to stop. There's 3 or 4 tidbits that Jay throws out here in this interview to me, and I've been around construction a long time, done a lot, and I love learning new things. And so the thing I learned new day before yesterday is that waste flowing downhill at 2%, which is 1/4 inch to a foot. I always thought that steeper would be better, and then I just found out that a little steeper is okay, but not much steeper, because you don't want the water to get ahead of your solids in a pipe as it goes into your sanitary sewer, which makes all the sense in the world. And the little nugget like that.
Yeah.
For something that is germane to everyone that's listening, basically everybody on the planet's life, is what happens when they flush that toilet.
That's right.
And at 1/4 inch to a foot, I thought, well, yeah, more fall would be better, because it would fall, it'd be more gravity, push, more everything, but yeah, then the water gets out of the solids and.
Right. And then you end up with backups.
So much sense.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can actually go less than 1/4 inch at some point, right? Isn't it? Can't you go
Well,
eighth?
if you can go 1/8 inch per foot if you absolutely have to, but then you have to increase the pipe size by 1 size.
So another tidbit, So if you and on your waist, if you haven't got a 1/4 inch to a foot, you can get half that. So picture a 1/4 inch to a foot. You say your waist has got to go 30 feet. At a 1/4 inch to a foot, that's got to go 7.5 inches. Got to go 30 quarters, which is 7.5 inches. So it has to go from point A to point B in that 30 feet, and it has to have 7.5 inches of vertical fall to achieve 1/4 inch. Now you can actually get away with 3 3/4 inches, half of that at 1% grade, or 1/8 of an inch per foot, but you have to size up to the next pipe. So if it's a 4-inch waist, you got to go to a 5-inch waist. Only got 1/8 to a foot at a 4-inch pipe, you got to go to a 5-inch pipe?
Yeah. Yeah, it rarely happens. Yeah, it rarely happens, but it does happen.
Yeah, and then that's in the sanitary waste, right?
That's right.
And so something like area drainage, you can get a 1/16 of a foot, and you can get whatever you can get.
Right.
You have some. So we're talking about a sanitary waste, and whenever I say sanitary waste, I mean the stuff that goes from your toilet, your shower, your sinks, and goes away and goes into the city sewer. Now, there are other things that drain, like roof water and area water, and those you have to have fall to take it away from the building and to get it to someplace else. And that fall can virtually be anything. It can be less than 1%, as long as it's going in the other direction. And it can't be at 0 dead flat, and it can't be minus. It can't flow back towards where you're trying to go, where you're starting from. That's obvious. Elevation given is if you can get a 16 of a foot, then the water will go that way.
That's right.
So, okay, so keep going. I forget where I stopped you at.
Well,
You're gonna meet Peter, you're gonna do a job walk on a remodel, which is almost as extensive as this, 2 bathrooms.
Right.
So remember, it's slab on grade.
Slab on grade with a 2nd story above.
Excuse me 1 second.
Sure.
Hey, I'm right in the middle of interviewing Dave. Oh, that's sweet. I love you too. I hope you have a good day too. Call me again, okay? Sorry, I didn't want to stop it. I could have stopped it, but it's kind of start and stop on the video.
It's all right. You can cut it out there.
So see, all better.
Yeah. All right. Just like that.
Yeah, and I'll tell you guys, class, I'll preface that when I show this video of what we're talking about. But in the meantime, slab on grade versus raised foundation. Can we talk a little bit about that? Well, first of all, what's the difference between slab on grade and a raised foundation as far as you guys go?
Well, a slab on grade is concrete, so we have to be really accurate, or else we're in there with a jackhammer later moving pipes. And so it's very important that we have all of our walls laid out properly so that we know exactly where our piping is.
Super important.
Very important.
They stub up through the slab before it's poured. And we have to have that inspected. We have to have that waste pipe inspected. We have to have the vent inspected. The vent has to top off. We have to go up what? 8 feet, 10 feet?
8 feet.
8 feet.
Yeah.
That's 8 feet. And it has to be filled with water and it has to stay there. The inspector has to see the water flow out of the pipe and then
Right.
until it pops out and then you can send out that rough.
Right.
And then you can pour. And then hopefully you layout guys have put that vent in the wall. And if it's not on the wall, then yeah, you got to break up. Or instead of a 2x4, we're going to use it. Well, can you make it a 2x6 wall?
If you have room.
2x8 wall.
Every now and then, we get lucky.
So, but then on a raised floor, on a raised floor, when would the problem need you guys to stub on a raised floor?
Well, it used to be that we would want to get our piping in a raised floor before the floor was sheeted.
Right.
So that we didn't have to
You
crawl it.
want to get at least a sleeve of pipes through the forms
Yes.
to get out to sewer.
Right.
Right. So
Right.
So you probably get your stubs through the forms, and then once they pour, then you can plumb all your waste and vents based on. pretty accurate layout because now the jobs, I guess, would be joisted, right?
Right.
And then you'd know where the joists were, and you'd
Right.
be easy to snap out walls and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's a little easier to find walls when the building's been defined with framing.
Yeah, a little easier.
Yeah.
I know you guys didn't do the piano house, you did the book building for us.
That's right.
The layout for the piano house, and the slab on grade, and getting that corner laid out in the dirt, and a new building where no even square footage of all this, was insane. But anyway.
Well, on all those slab buildings, we rely heavily on the concrete foreman to be the guy in charge to tell us where everything is. Because we need to know, as long as the plans are drawn correctly, we can follow the plan, but we need those starting points. And there's so many variables in slab work nowadays with some of the jobs we work on. As they get more and more complex, it's harder to understand sometimes the involvement of the concrete.
Yes.
So.
Okay, so you are either gonna do this job block on remodel and just kind of do some layout, I'm assuming, and make sure everybody's on the same page where stuff goes. Is that
Right. Yeah,
what are you gonna do?
I've got a couple hours of paperwork to get ready for tomorrow and next week, and then actually I'm leaving at 2 o'clock today. I'm taking off. That's all I'm gonna say about that. I have a friend coming from Colorado. Yeah, what can I say? Happens once in a
Are
while.
we still going to Pebble Beach? Am I still in
Yeah,
town?
yeah.
And when is that?
It's the 28th of March, which is a Monday. We're playing Monday morning or Monday sometime.
We gotta talk about that.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
just took on another class.
Oh,
I teach Tuesday and Thursday mornings. But anyway,
yeah.
I digress again. So Jay, normally on a regular day,
Yeah.
we're taking off at 2 o'clock. What would your afternoons be like?
Well, I'm doing job walks if we set them up with new clients and new jobs, or I am answering questions for our other plumbers and laying them out on jobs that are in progress. Or contractors or homeowners on laying out shower valves or.
How many jobs do you got going?
Currently, we have about 82 projects we're working on. No, 82 projects.
And they're all in various phases of rough.
All in various phases. Some are almost finished, some are just beginning. That's right.
Correct, rough in, top access.
Yes.
That's pretty much what plumbers do.
Yeah.
They rough the pipes in that you don't see, top them out so where they're ready to extend through walls and slabs and floors.
That's right.
And at one point they come to set finish, which is setting the WCs and the labs and all of the faucets and like that.
That's right.
Why don't we pick up and walk back to the utility room and start talking about the plumbing here? But initially,
Okay, sounds good.
I had Jay set up here so you could see right here is the water meter and the gas meter. These are the things that these guys, the plumbers, are concerned with. And at this point, we have cut off everything, safed off, cut off everything from the meters. Nothing goes to the house. So it's all going to get run new, right?
That's right.
New gas line.
That's right.
And a new water line. So we'll have a new water line coming to a new service entry, which we're going to take you back to, which we're going to have to take up this whole driveway, do some trenching. It's getting a new driveway, a different kind of driveway. And then the gas. And actually, let's talk about the gas for just a second, because there's a special thing that has to happen with the gas. And that's based on the fact that we have an on-demand
Water here.
water heater. And an on-demand water heater, what's the special part of that for the gas?
Well, the thing about an on-demand water heater is unlike a storage water heater, which has a standing pilot, and you've got 30 or 40 or 50 gallons worth of water that's heating. On-demand water stores no water at all. So you need that water that passes through there to be heated extremely fast, just like that. So in order for that to happen, it requires a lot of energy. So you need a larger gas line to supply the needs of an on-demand water heater.
So typical gas line going to a vessel heaters in a house, heating house is 3/4.
Well, it depends. The way you size gas piping is from the meter to the farthest fixture. You add up all the BTUs in the house, and then there's a chart that you read in the plumbing code that will tell you, based on distance and the BTU demand, it will tell you the size of the piping required for each of those fixtures.
Remember the size that came off the here? There's a pretty typical size, isn't it? Pretty typically 3/4.
Well, it used to be in homes years ago, 1 inch was a little more typical pipe size to a resident, a smaller, 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom, 2-bath, kitchen, laundry.
So 1 inch
home.
gas.
1 inch.
Came out of here,
I think 1 inch is what came out of here.
And then we're upsizing to.
I think we're upsizing to 1.5 inches on this project based on the distance to the water heater.
And the volume required for.
That's right.
Way more. BTUs.
It's way more BTUs.
Even a 100-gallon vessel.
Right,
And
exactly.
then we have gas, and I don't know your opinion, but I prefer heating water with gas because it's cheaper.
Yeah, it's cheaper.
Electric does heat water, and one really cool thing about electric, other than the energy use, is that you have no flue pipe.
Right.
There's no flue, whereas when you're heating stuff with gas, you have to have those exhaust hot gases go out.
Right.
Which is also nice for what we got. We're going to show you all is that this on demand, not only in its flue, does it can be plastic.
That's right.
And you don't have a whole lot of triple wall collar and that stuff. And
No,
so you
because
don't have
they,
all this insulation around it, triple wall collars as it passes through roofs, but also in it you have combustion air intake too, right? Makeup air.
that's right.
Which
Makeup air.
otherwise, in that our utility room might have to put high and low vents
That's
for
right.
makeup air, which the owner did not want vents in that door.
Right.
And then I found out another thing I didn't know was that
Yeah.
this thing has makeup air coming right through the pipe.
That's right. And they burn so much more efficiently.
Yeah.
And that's why you can do it in,
Is there a recircle in it? Would you use a recircle for?
yes, there's
It's
a,
hot there,
that's right.
but then as it leaves there, it's pushing whatever's cooled down and copper pipes, right?
That's right. The on-demand water heater that we like to use is the Navion, because they have a recirculation pump and an expansion tank inside of the heater already built in. And that's the only on-demand heater on the market up till now that utilizes that. So that's the one heater we've been going to time again.
Which makes you wonder why the other guys aren't.
Well, I think they're starting to follow suit, but so far they really haven't come close to what the Navion has to offer.
Why in the hell didn't Trek put a damn throttle on my bike? I wonder if that's actually, I have an e-bike and it's so bad.
Judy has one.
I looked at this guy's e-bike.
Yeah.
He paid, another $700 or $800 than I did for
Right.
most of ours. And it's got a throttle and it's got the 28 mile per hour. But anyway,
Yeah.
I like our bikes.
Yeah.
So we're gonna go, we're gonna walk from here and we're gonna go back to utility. Now, let's go, you know what I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn this off.
There you go. Plenty to edit then.
There we go. Now we're recording.
Okay.
Otherwise, I was recording the whole time. Dang it. That's okay. And I do very little editing. It takes too much time. So we're back in the utility room with Jay Allen. Jay, tell us what we're looking at here.
What you're looking at? Well, this is the water softener loop.
Okay.
We loop the pipes together basically just for testing right now.
Okay, so this gets.
Check out that copper soldering job. It just is clean as anything that guy's video showed. Super clean. Wow, I love it.
A brine tank.
Yeah, this will get a resin tank and a brine tank. The brine tank is what holds the salt or the sodium, potassium, whatever you use for your material to soften the water, and then the resin tank hooks up here. So this is a 1-inch pipe. This is the supply line that comes in from the water meter.
Okay, now that supply line, it comes from the water heater. Okay.
The water meter.
The water meter,
The
not the
meter.
water heater.
The meter.
So that supply line, I'm just gonna plan over here for a minute because that supply line, that 1-inch line is the water supply. It comes in the building on the outside right there with a pressure regulator on the outside of the building, comes up the wall, comes over and gets into this wall and drops down.
Right here.
So this is the first place the water enters the building and actually goes into something,
That's correct.
right? And the first place it goes is through the water softener?
Do the water softener first, just to soften or treat the water before it goes into any part of the house,
Even before it goes.
even before it goes into the water heater. Right. Really important that Ismail has drawn arrows on here so that if he's not the guy coming back, we know for sure which direction the water flows. And typically on a softener up to 1.25 inches, it flows from right to left. Water softeners that are 1.5 inches or higher, it goes from left to right. So it's just a nice reminder to do that. So from here, it goes through the water softener, it goes back up back into the framing where Rodney just showed you. It goes, there's a T back there, and it goes 3/4 cold, soft to the rest of the house. And then this uninsulated line right here above my head is 3/4 line that feeds the on-demand water heater. The next line over here with the insulation on it is the return line. And this line here is the hot water out. It leaves the water heater and goes and circulates all through the house to all the fixtures in the house. And at the farthest fixture, it turns around and just comes all the way back to the water heater.
So that's how that plumbing works. That hot water is heated by a water heater, not a hot water heater, because hot water heaters don't heat hot water. Hot water is already hot. So water heaters heat water, and it pipes it to all your fixtures, and then it loops back and goes back into the on-demand heater. I meant to ask him if you didn't have an on-demand and you had a vessel type, would it do that? Because I don't think it does. So it loops all the way back. So the water goes through the house.
It leaves the water heater. As you open a faucet somewhere in the house, it will leave the water heater. And at the same time, it enables the recirc pump to turn on, and it starts circulating hot water through the heater and through the system, so that when you turn on that water, within ideally about 10 seconds, you'll get hot water.
So meantime, pipes are charged.
Pipes are charged.
They're under pressure.
Right.
So I just answered the question for myself, and that is, if you have a vessel type heater, unless you have a recirc pump on it, then it doesn't return back to your water heater at all. It goes out from your vessel heater, is hot water, it goes to the last fixture, and then that's it. And then it's a cold water supply that keeps going into that vessel as hot water goes out, and then the hot water is heated by gas. The water is heated by gas. Valves. The valves. The valves. Yeah, I'm using that a little bit too much.
Yeah.
The valves at the faucets keep it from going anywhere.
That's right.
And when you turn on a cold water faucet, the cold water, which is not attached to the hot water.
That's right.
Where's the cold water?
The cold,
Right out of the softener?
it comes right out of the softener, and you can't see it, but on the other side in the ceiling lid, the pipe changes from 1 inch to 3/4. It goes 3/4 to the rest of the house, and then it goes 3/4 to the water heater.
Okay, so cold, separate circuit basically.
Yeah,
So the
basically,
cold
right.
Doesn't do anything to the water heater.
No, not at
Now,
all.
when you turn on the hot water faucet, it triggers all kinds of stuff. It triggers
Yeah.
a recirc pump to happen.
Right.
So that starts happening. Then it doesn't happen like a regular recirc pump, which is kind of almost happening all the time, right?
Right.
It doesn't need a faucet to turn on.
These particular heaters have two different options for recirculation. You can buy a separate control for about $100, and you can set it to basically like a timer. So you can have the recirc come on at 6 in the morning till 10, and again at 6 at night till 10, whenever your peak water usage is. If you opt not to buy that extra timer, it has like a smart control feature in it where it keeps track of your hot water usage. So after about a week or two of living in the house, it will kind of know when you tend to use hot water. And so it will anticipate those times, and the pump will come on a few minutes before those times, so that when you do use them, it's actually hot. It's pretty amazing. It works well. Now, if you normally take a shower at 6 and you start taking showers at midnight, it will still come on at midnight and circulate a little bit in case you're going to do that. So it gets a little, sometimes it can get a little confused, but it's a very handy feature.
But you don't put a research pump in every vessel either. Not every water heater system you put in has a research pump.
No, I mean, it's really, if it's something that the owner wants.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, I think, standing there for a minute plus. It's spelling out research pump, RESEARCH, but it's actually what I'm saying and what we're talking about is a recirc, which is short for recirculating pump. What does it approximately cost to add into an existing system to put in a recirc pump?
well, it depends. I mean, if your piping is below the slab, it's really challenging to do. If your piping is in an attic space or under a raised foundation, it's much easier to do. What we have to do is go to your farthest hot fixture and cut in a T and run a cold line all the way back to your water heater and put a pump there between that line and your water heater. And then we insulate it as well. And if you are on an older home and you didn't have to insulate your pipes as part of the code, then chances are none of the hot water lines are insulated, and we would offer insulating those lines as well. Right.
These are all insulated for code. Anything that's carrying hot water is going to be.
That's right. Nowadays, yeah.
Going to be insulated, and then what's that thinking of? So this guy has a built-in recirc. So as soon as you turn on the hot water, it starts recirculating everywhere. And then it seems ideally then every fixture is going to be hot.
Right. We try to get our hot water loop within a minimum of 10 feet from the fixture, so that when you open the faucet, usually it's less than 10 seconds, and you'll have hot water flowing. Sometimes it could be as quickly as 1 or 2 seconds, almost immediately.
Really good. I'm sure some of you can relate to having to wait for water to get hot. And, it's coming around.
Right.
This
And saves water.
and it saves water. Big time. This right here, I still got Jay's head in there. What am I seeing here, Jay? This thing above me.
Oh, this is the vent for the water heater, and this has an air intake and the heat out.
So is the air intake in here? No, the air takes.
It takes air from the roof, on the top of the roof, and brings it into the water heater.
The combustion air.
The combustion air, so that it functions properly. Without combustion air,
Then it starves.
it would starve and it would,
Fuel and air and spark.
yeah. Without combustion air, it would go bam every time it turned on and shut off. We've had it happen before.
Yeah, I hate that. Okay, what else is there? What else can you tell me here? Because we got some condensate, it looks like.
This is the drain line for the water softener. When it,
Now, every water softener has a. So condensate, and I'm going to talk more about condensate. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about condensate lines and drain lines that aren't necessarily, that are fixture drain lines and not necessarily the main drain lines for the fixture. But when I say fixture drain lines, I mean fixtures like forced air unit has condensate that's got to get into a sanitary waste. There's a drain line and condensate. There's condensate for the Navion on demand, and then there's a drain line for the soft water, and all those have to go to a sanitary sewer.
yes, if it's a softener that you add salt or sodium potassium.
And is that what that's for?
That's what this is for. This is for when the water softener regenerates, which is based on gallons used. It is about a 2-hour cycle to regenerate, and it needs to dump the water someplace when it does that. So this water line or this drain line gets pushed from the pressure in the system. It pushes the water to a location. The location we've chosen here and we do most often is to the laundry box, which is over in the
So
garage.
is it pushing it without a pump?
Without a pump, it's just pressure from the city.
Okay. So it doesn't need gravity, it'll pump, it'll push it up.
It'll pump as high as 16 feet.
But like a condensate line, like we don't have it, but we do, when do we have to pump them? When do we have to?
Well, here, in this instance, here, the one thing about Navian heaters is that they condense.
Okay, so there's a
And so
condensate line.
and so as they heat up, they condense, and there's a drain in the bottom of them to collect that condensation, and that's got to be pumped someplace. So this line down here we have set up, we're going to mount a pump down here. It will take the water from the condensate water from the water heater into this pump, and it's going to pump it up and over to the same laundry location as the water softener drain. Here's the condensate line. Pump's going to be mounted in here. That'll happen on finish after it's all drywalled and painted and all that. And then it'll connect from here to the pump and from the pump to here, and it'll pump.
We got a duplex outlet there for your pump, right?
That's for the pump. Power for the pump. Power for the water heater.
Power for the water heater, which is 110, right?
110, and power for the water
Power
softener.
for the water softener. And the thing that you gotta remember is that the water softener has a drain line. It's under pressure, so it doesn't need to be pumped. And
That's
that
right.
thing is going up, overhead, over the garage, it's dropping down. It's going, I'll show you when we go under. It's dropping down and tying into the laundry waste.
That's right. Yep.
And the condensate line, just like an air conditioning compressor has a condensate line. and
Right.
Forced air units that have the pumps, et cetera. Condensate lines has to go to a sanitary tube.
Right.
It can't go outside like a, temperature pressure in a minute, but it has to go to sanitary waste. And when we say sanitary waste, we mean the waste that goes from your shower, your faucet, and your sinks, and your toilet all goes down to a sanitary waste. Everything
That's
that
right.
leaves this building goes to sanitary waste. We have
Yeah.
no gray water systems around here.
Yeah. Yeah, there are some exceptions if you can't get it to a sanitary waste. Sometimes the building department will allow you to put it into the ground if you build a gravel pit.
Ah, I see, okay. So
It is, the water, the small dry well, and the water is slightly acidic, so they prefer not to do that. But there are some times where you just don't have a way to get anywhere.
So we're pumping the condensate, and then we could conceivably, the condensate, if we had a drain nearby, and we get a 1/4 inch fall, we could just tie it in the drain.
You could just tie it into a drain. Yeah.
But from here to here, over to our nearest drain at the laundry, there's no way to get fall.
That's right.
It comes out the bottom.
That's right. Yeah.
It comes bottom, we can't get through a doorway. If that doorway wasn't there,
You could probably make it. You might make it. Yeah. Now, one other thing I'll mention about these is that we put an acid neutralizer on that condensate drain to neutralize the acid before the slight acidity in the condensate as it gets pumped.
Okay.
And we would do the same if it went into a dry well. You put a neutralizer in there to cut back on the acid.
Waste.
Yeah.
What's this down here, Jay? What's this copper pipe?
This copper pipe right here is the temperature and pressure relief valve.
Sometimes known as the TNP.
The TNP, which every water heater has to have by code for good reason.
Vessel or
It doesn't matter. Any type of water heating, whether it be a boiler, a standing pilot heater, or a tankless water heater, has to have a temperature and pressure relief valve.
what is that?
And what that does is if the water heater for some reason fails to turn off, and we call that something like a runaway heater, and the thing continues to heat and heat and heat and heat past its normal capacity, if you don't have a place for that excess pressure that happens when you build heat, it will just explode. So instead, the temperature and pressure relief valve opens and discharges the hot water.
It's just set to
It's either 200, it's either
pressure and it opens.
It's either 210 degrees or 150 pounds pressure.
That's pretty scalding.
210 degrees. The water heaters are standardly set at 120 degrees.
Yeah. So temperature and pressure reliefs also have to conform to one thing. They have to leave the building.
That's right.
And then they turn down. So where do you see that pipe leaving the building right here? It's going to go out and it's going to leave the building past the stucco and it's going to turn down at an elbow and that's it.
Yeah, it's supposed to be between 6 and 18 from finished grade. 6 and 18 inches from finished grade. 6.
No more than 18, and it's
That's right.
also got to, it's gotta go to the outside, and if it can't go to the outside, it also has to be closed, right?
No, there are.
Can't you dump them to Smitty pan and then pump from?
They do not really like you to do it in the Smitty pan. There's another way of doing it, which is kind of, we don't use them very often, but there's a device that you can attach to the temperature pressure relief valve that will actually turn the gas off if it gets to a runaway situation. If you have no other choice.
Because in some cases, slab on grade, water heater in the middle of the building,
Sometimes down in a basement.
where are we gonna go?
Down in a basement. A lot of times in a basement, we're allowed to run them into a floor sink
Yeah, that's what mine.
if there's no other way to get outside to grade. If you have to go up and out, they don't work.
So,
They won't allow you. I mean, it should work theoretically because it's under pressure. It'll push it, but they don't want you to go up and out. It's got to go at a 1/4 inch per foot out.
so you can't legally dump your TMP down to the Smitty pan and have your Smitty pan be outside?
No. No. Can I take this call? Hi, Juan.
Now, this is a typical.
Okay.
Can I make a comment, Rodney?
Please.
One of the reasons they don't allow you to run it up and over is that if that pressure valve starts failing and it starts leaking, you wouldn't know until, if it's just dripping, you wouldn't know till weeks or months later.
Yeah, that's a good point. And because you can see it, when it turns, typically it turns, leaves the building and then turns down, and you can see it if it's the valve's leaking, right?
Yeah.
Point. Yeah, I agree. This video doesn't have closed captioning, so sorry about that, gang. But I think it's only 1 minute and 3 seconds. I don't know why. It may not even be worth watching, but let's just see. Oh, I know, and it's just unbelievable camera. It's really HD.
Clarity,
HD
yeah.
to the max, yeah. Well, this guy, 8. Okay. And still. I think we're good.
Okay.
So let's go in there and let's lay that out. We'll take Jay in for some feedback too. Somehow this got recording again. I don't know how, but we're
We
recording.
got some editing to do, Roddy.
Yeah. So we're gonna go in. We're all gonna go in. Okay, Theo, we're coming in through your door, buddy. We're in. We're in, Theo. Okay, we're through. So we're taking you, we're gonna take all of us. There you go. Absolutely, let's take a look. You know what? I'm gonna set this up here, and then I'm gonna turn it off. Okay, we got it. Okay, we're recording again, so let's go through that again. We're laying out with, whoa, does anybody recognize that dude? It's hard to tell with a mask on, but I recognize him.
That's John, isn't it?
That's John. No, I won't tell you who that is. His first name is John. Back here with Jay. Where's Ismail? This is Ismail.
Number 1 plumber here.
This is Rudy.
And Rudy.
And this is Adrian, the tin bender. Okay, so what we're doing, what we just did is we laid out. In construction, HVAC guys are tin benders, electricians are sparkies, and plumbers are turd chasers. Application of this shower valve. So John, could you tell us a little bit about this while you're right here?
So we want to match the same height from the shower to this tub.
Okay.
So we took the offset from the bottom of this tub to the floor. Cancel it out, and then we mounted the valve at 40 inches from the tub up onto the wall.
And dead center of the tub.
Dead center.
And the plumbing goes up from there to the shower head, right?
Yeah.
And there's the steps for hot and cold in the wall, and there's the tub that's built. At some point, I'll tell you a little bit more about tubs. It's kind of tricky the way we did this tub to set it with, on a deck with equal reveals, on a marble deck with equal reveals. There's the closet flange that's stuck for the WC, which is out there 14 inches.
12.
Center, no, 14.
Oh, this one is 14, that's
So
right.
we're gonna fur this wall, oh, we did.
You already,
So for those of you that have heard me and Jay say WC a bunch of times, in case you're confused at all, WC is short for water closet, AKA also known as toilet.
fur the wall
Now,
out.
we fur the wall, so now we won't have that gap down the toilet.
That's right. Now it should be 12, which is a standard run
Yeah,
for a
and it's-
toilet.
And we didn't fire the wallet up. That thing's read fired the wallet. It should have read furred the wall out. And I'm going to tell you about wall furring, but not right now. Because some of you, I know, are confused about what it means to fur out a wall.
12 and 5/8, or is it 12?
Well, it's 12 plus whatever the finish is.
So in this case, we'll call it 12 and 5/8 with 5/8 travel. Oh, thank you, John. Makes it a hell of a-
12 from finish,
Yeah, 12 from finish to center
center of the drain,
of the drain, and that gets your toilet pretty much cozied up to the wall.
about an inch away from the wall.
And it was way more than that. So now, by furring this wall out, this existing toilet drain is going to be just perfect for the toilet. There won't be a big gap in the toilet like it was before. And then all this is getting a waterproof plaster. We hope to do the whole thing in this plaster finish, but the waterproof plaster is going to be the shower surround, marble deck, marble face. Let's walk into this. Let's actually, Jay, let's go to the kitchen. And then, or take it back. Let's go down the hall and we'll do this back. There we go, going down the hall. See any plumbing here? Yeah, wait, there's a copper pipe. You know, it's not insulated, so it must be cold.
That's a coal line.
And here's a few copper pipes. And they are insulated, so it must be hot. Hey,
Very good.
look at this. This is where John is working right now. And this, ladies and gentlemen, can we pull that plug up, Jay? This box, this drain box that you're about to uncover right there. Now that box was set in the yellow sand before the slab was poured and before the foundation was completely formed, before the slab was poured. And all these guys, this waste, with its cleaner on the other side, but this drain and waste for the toilet. And is it laid out right? Is it 12 inches? Who's got tape?
Let's hope so.
Check it out.
Might be a little far. 13 is what we kind of go for on our, yeah, 13 right on the nose.
Right on that money, honey.
Right on the nose.
15.
That makes a plumber happy.
Yeah, that's nice. So that got laid out just right for that wall. And as you can see, the vents in the wall, both vents are in the wall. Vent and waste for the
Clean out and waste.
clean out, and the vanity waste is all in the wall. So we nailed that. We got that laid out. right.
Absolutely perfect.
And now, and you've got the drain box,
For the shower drain.
with shower drain, and that's not dead solid perfect, but we're gonna get it side to side, dead center, and maybe a little bit towards us, a little bit off center, but regardless, it's all gonna float to drain, and I think we're gonna get that drain centered, and now we'll know. So tell us a little bit about shower plumbing, Jay.
I mean, this, seeing the shower valve?
Yeah.
This is the shower valve that was set to center in between the rough exterior wall and the rough interior part of the shower down. And then this is where the shower head will go. This nipple in here is just a test nipple. We'll pull this out after the tile's all done and put in the proper.
And when we rough in these shower valves and these nipples for the shower arm, for the shower head, they're totally customizable. In other words, they're not set in stone. You can have that shower head as high or virtually as low as you want it, as long as it's above the valve. You could probably even put it below the valve if you wanted to. And I'm sure there are shower heads that are below the valve. But in this case, we needed the owner's input to where she wanted the valve, the controls at what height, and also at what height she wanted the shower head. And she could have had them virtually wherever she wanted them.
The proper chrome arm and the shower head that goes with that. This is a hot water line that's insulated down to within a couple feet of the valve, and then this is the cold water line on the side. Ismail did a nice job of using this plug on the bottom that would go to a tub filler. If you had a tub, he did a nice job of using that as a block to secure this pipe. So there is, I mean, you can't, this thing doesn't move at all.
Yeah.
With the plugs here, plugs on both sides, strapped here, right there. I mean, nothing's going to move on this.
Which is nice for a variety of reasons, because I have a water hammer. I don't know where it's come from.
Yeah.
But it's, you know, it's my pipes hammering in the walls.
It could be that. It could be a faulty pressure regulator.
You know,
Could be.
from all the way from the street.
Yeah.
Oh, that's probably what it is.
Yeah.
Actually,
Yeah. Yeah.
Pressure regulator is pretty important though.
Yeah.
And so John's spraying ditches for shampoo ditches.
There.
And Ishmael is still yet to plumb that drain, right?
No, he hasn't done that yet. We'll get it center. We've got a little bit of concrete to chip out to get it right in the center.
Bust out, and then of course, none of that shows. And just for your elucidation, which if you didn't know, all the other concrete you see here, which reminds me, I gotta call that concrete guy, that grinder guy, it's all finished floor. It's gonna get ground and so it's all kind of a homogeneous surface, and then it'll get clear seal. But this dam that John's put in, 1.5 inches by 3.5 inches up, is gonna wind up being 6 inches wide and 6 inches tall by the time it gets floated and gets the Carrara marble on top of it. But we'll talk about tile and marble and all this stuff at some other juncture. A little bit to bust out there, not much, and it may be because I anticipated the shower being lighter, but wanted something that Jay knows fully well, and John probably knows, and I'll tell you about right now, is that WCs, water closets, toilets, need by code 30 inches from their center, 15 aside from center. That's minimum. You can't go under that, but you can go, you can go as far over that.
Yeah, as far as you like.
And I don't like just, I try to get closer to 18 aside or even 17 aside, even 16 aside. And in this case, we got 42-inch vanity that stops, 17.5 inches to the center, 17.5 inches to what's going to be a finished and final shower. And then the shower, which gives us, it's going to give us about 31 inches inside that shower, which is a nice shower. You can see these showers.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be great.
It's gonna be commodious. You'll be able to, two
Yeah.
people will be able to get in it if they want. So what else, just the drain has to happen in this, right?
That's all that has to happen is the drain, and then the tile setter takes
And the
over.
drain is actually already in that box tied into your waste, right?
Yeah, it's the trap arm is in there. We have to put a P-trap in there, and then the drain.
And every fixture gets a P-trap, correct?
That's correct.
Water waste vent and waste, every waste gets a trap.
Yeah, except with toilets, the P-traps are built into the china.
Okay. Another aha moment for me in plumbing is that I know about plumbing is that every plumbing fixture takes water waste vent, and that water flows downhill at 1/4 inch to a foot, and that every single fixture gets a P-trap. And the P-trap, which we'll explain in just a second what the P-traps do, but toilets don't get P-traps. Their trap is built into the porcelain fixture, and Jay will tell us about it right now. Okay.
So there's no P-trap that gets installed underneath the concrete or subfloor.
Okay, so
It's just an elbow. It's just a 90-degree
Your trap's built in the toilet.
built into a toilet.
Tons of things today.
Yeah.
Holy smoke. Because
Yeah.
I was telling my owners in Ventura yesterday that to do a
a walk-in shower, first we have to ascertain what the second floor joist is. Let's say
Right.
they're 11.5 inch TGIs.
Right.
Can we cut out enough to get enough fall to build up, to slope to drain and
Right.
have a walk-in shower?
Yeah.
And then so you have to have a heat trap or everything.
That's right.
Shower.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Right. Work. So Rodney, what's the purpose of a P-trap?
Well, as I know, it's to keep sewer gases from, because it's always full.
That's right.
Keep sewer gases from getting back up in here.
Up into the house. Yeah, that's right. That's correct.
That's what it's for.
That's what it's for. That's all it's for. Yeah.
Because if you didn't have that, and you just have an open waste right to your central waste, then sewer gases.
Sewer smell. That's right.
John, thank you. That's my lighting supervisor. Can you guys shut up right there? Okay, so let's get over to, well, actually, let's take a look at this.
Might want to get this from the other side, maybe.
Digging with me, with the tripod, on the tripod.
Into the garage.
Which here's the
Now here's the large 1.5 inch gas line we were talking about.
Gas line, we're talking about black pipe. Right now, inside the house, gas line is going to be run in black pipe. It's just black iron pipe, right?
That's right.
Black iron pipe, and that's all it needs to be. But when it leaves the house, it's got to be galvanized.
That's correct.
And then when it gets in the ground, it could be galvanized, but it's probably going to be polypropylene.
It's going to be poly.
It'll be a yellow
Polyethylene pipe.
polyethylene with it's got a married locator line to it.
Yeah, we have to put a tracer wire on it.
Yeah, tracer wire. So
Yeah.
that's stubbed, so we can tie into it after we do that big long trench. And how deep does gas has to be?
18 inches of cover. So usually a 20-inch trench, 22-inch deep trench. And the water only has to be 18 inches or 12 inches, but we usually just put it right next to the gas line.
Gas and water can go in the
Same trench, yeah.
Deeper is okay.
Deeper is okay.
Shallower is not good.
You don't want to get too deep because then if you ever have to repair it, it's hard to get to.
All right, and you always shade the trench too?
No, it's not necessary, but it just depends. If your soil is really rocky, then you might want to shade it rather than put native soil back in.
And another reason to shade it, I find, is
Locator.
for locating.
Yeah.
So you know you should get, when we say shading, that is covering your pipe with maybe a couple inches of yellow plaster sand. So
Right.
when you start digging and you hit that plaster sand, you know that you're on the pipe.
There's utilities.
Be careful, because the last thing you want to do is cut that damn gas line.
Right. Another thing that they do have that you can use sometimes is a tape that sits right on top of the pipe that says caution gas pipe. And you run that tape all along the gas pipe, but that's only in certain instances we use that.
I've watched the gas company guys well on gas pipe.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Guys are,
Really?
Yeah.
I'm gonna get back over here. They're going,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
you don't really need to. Okay, so there's a big old 1.5 inch gas pipe sizing. So run all these gas fixtures in here. And what we've got, in here, and I'm not sure anybody sized the BTUs, but
oh yeah.
what we've got is, we got a Berlin stove, we got an on-demand water heater, we got a forced air unit, air conditioning,
And a clothes dryer.
and
Clothes dryer, right?
clothes dryer.
Right.
And now you can figure 1.5 inches, 1.5 inches is enough. You guys know that by experience.
That's right.
You good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, so let's take a look. Right here, this is
You seem to have muted the video too, Rodney.
just repipe it. So that's what you're seeing here. Could you describe a little bit of what we're seeing?
Yeah. Yeah, the first thing,
You
oops,
gotta give me a few minutes.
the first thing we're seeing down here is a cleanup.
Okay.
Move your camera down here. Is we put a clean out in here for two reasons. One, because you need one on every drain line. Has to have a cleanup. That's right. Well, it's in case your sewer ever gets plugged up with toilet paper or turds or whatever gets in there. Roots sometimes intrude on old sewer lines.
So at one point, J. Allen 6 is going to, the batteries are going to die unbeknownst to me on the Bluetooth receiver. So the sound is going to go off somewhere close to the end, and then I'll narrate the last bit what I have to. But this is a pretty good part too, this last part. And I'm going to show it. We're going to run over 12. If you have to leave, that's okay. And if you can, please stay. Back on. Okay, so we're back on. Jay's talking about cleanouts.
Yeah, so every plumbing drain line has to have a clean out. And we put a clean out here that for that very reason, so you can clean out the line when you need to. We've also inserted a test ball that you fill with air. It's got a little bicycle, you know, like a Schrader valve on the end of it. You hook up a bicycle pump to it or some kind of something, and you fill it full of air, and it allows the water to just stay in the piping above when we test. So we're not testing the existing piping. We're testing the water above here.
Wow, is that new? Is that something new?
They've been around for, I don't know, 15 years, maybe. We do it only in instances where we don't want to retest the slab waste again. It just takes more time to fill up the waste. It's already been tested. It's already been passed by inspection.
So when we go for our plumbing rough, which will be soon, as soon as we get the showers done, these vents will all have to get filled up.
To the roof.
To the roof,
Right.
And then Petra will knock on them and make sure they're all
Right.
holding water.
Right, filled with water. So what we have here is we have a double stack on a 2-inch waistline. When you stack two things on top of each other, the larger pipe has to be on the bottom. In other words, we have two 2-inch drain lines, so it doesn't matter. But say this was going to be a laundry sink, the 2-inch waistline has to be lower. The larger pipe has to be first, and then the smaller one on top.
Makes sense to me.
Right. So
Each of these pipes has P-trap.
we have a P-trap. This goes to the laundry box for the washing machine. And then this one over here, this P-trap goes to a, we're going to put there's a fitting here that's not on yet. It'll go on a trim. It's called a Mr. Drain fitting that will incorporate a 1-inch air gap between the condensate drain and the softener drain from the mechanical room. And there'll be a Mr. Drain fitting here that will allow a 1-inch air gap.
And the air gap, physically, what does it do?
It holds the pipe 1 inch above the sewer line so that in case the sewer ever came up, it couldn't get in contact with that water and somehow flow backwards into the yeah, it's the same thing that you have, same thing you have on a dishwasher.
Yeah.
Same kind of deal. So this will get a,
To a dishwasher, basically down below your sink, right?
well, no,
Why
you,
do they put air gaps
well,
in
no,
the
that's,
shower? Does that still do, we're still doing that?
still have to do that. It's silly. It's really silly. Anyway, there'll be a finished panel that'll go in here after drywall. So we have access to get into it.
That'll be a 12-inch, it might not be a 12 by 12 inspection panel in metal, because this garage contiguous to the house needs to be rated 1 hour wall. So our
That's right.
door needs to be rated. This box is metal. It's rated 1 hour. It's usually not metal. And then we've got to get an inspection box there that's maybe 1 hour.
Right.
And this got all broke out and repiped.
Yes.
Funky old galvanized waste.
They make these boxes, the plastic ones we use have two places for drain lines. So if this was in a building that wasn't in a garage with a firewall, we could have used a plastic box here and we would have had two drain lines tied in instead of having to do this.
Oh.
This we had to do because it's a firewall. And you can't get these metal boxes with 2 drain outlets for whatever reason. We've tried.
Let's go see the kitchen.
Yeah, okay.
We're gonna go to the kitchen. Come with us to the Mango kitchen. There's Theodore working away on the hardware. This is another, we'll do finished work someday together. Going okay, Theodore? Yeah, good. All right, so now we are in the kitchen. So as you can see, let's just take a scan here. There's a lot of plumbing coming out of the garage attic and from the utility room. We've got vent lines. So that laundry vent ties into the kitchen vent. So it's one vent penetration over the garage that vents all these. How many fixtures can you vent on a 2-inch stack?
24 fixture units.
Wow, no kidding.
Yeah.
And so is the sink a single fixture unit?
The sink is 2.
2 fixture units?
Yeah.
How about laundry?
It's changed. Laundry is 3, I believe.
Okay, so there's 5. And how about
Toilets are now 4. They used to be 3. So they've changed. Showers are
Pipes
2.
rated for fixture units and what they can take,
Right.
depending upon size of the pipe.
Yeah.
Take X amount of fixture units.
That's right. And the code changed, I think, about 10 years ago. And sometimes I still get confused because I'm so used to program to.
Well, I remember part of my 1981 contractor's license, test, the 3-hour trade test.
Right.
And some of the questions were, in a 10-story building on the 4th floor, how many fixture units can you stack on a?
Right. Yeah.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
Let me just ask my plumber.
Yeah. Yeah, sure.
This is what any general contractor.
Let me go get my book and I'll tell you for sure.
UPC, right?
Yeah, I'll tell you
So
for sure.
You still refer to UPC, correct?
Oh, absolutely. I have a new code book in my truck
You're from plumbing code, that's the Bible.
because they do change. Things do
Those
change.
and then, so the IBC, do you guys, does that affect plumbers?
No, UBC, the unit UPC is what we use. Yeah,
For us, it's International Building Code now.
right, right.
Used to be.
Yeah. Then there's local.
Used to be the Uniform Building Code, now it's the International Building Code. I'm losing words. So describe us what we're seeing here, because we're seeing a heck of a lot of plumbing.
See a lot of plumbing. The drain line, the existing drain line, because as Rodney mentioned earlier, the concrete floors are staying and getting refinished. We didn't want to do any concrete busting. So the existing drain line for the shower was here because the sink was over here someplace, right? I mean, I'm sorry, for the sink. So we've tied onto somewhere in here. So we've tied onto the existing drain line for the sink, and we have ran a waste line. The issue is we can't run. You're only allowed to go 42 inches with an 1.5 inch trap arm. So this was more than 42 inches. So we had to upsize the pipe and go 2 inches to a certain point. Then we can run our trap arm within that 42 inches, but this is where we had to run the vent.
So you can run over 42, is that what's called dirty arm?
No, well, someone calls it a dirty arm. It's not an actual term. It's actually a trap arm.
It was 48, but you can run 42, and
Three.
you have to go more than 42 if you upsize the pipe.
It'll allow you to do that, right?
For how much longer?
Well, with a 1.5 inch pipe, you can run 3 feet 6 inches. With a 5-inch pipe, you can, or with a 2-inch pipe, you can go 5 feet. A 3-inch pipe is 8 feet, and a 4-inch pipe, I believe, is 12 feet. We don't do that very often. So, I don't know. Should I wave?
So what else we got here?
So this is the vent for the sink drain that runs back 1/4 inch per foot and ties into the laundry drain and goes that way because the owners preferred to see or not see the vent anywhere on the front of the house.
We want those vents, and in this case, if this had a ceiling, these vents, once they got above the ceiling in the attic space, they could
Right.
lay on the ceiling joist.
That's right.
Or they could be strapped. But really what Jay was talking about is that we could have gone straight up and penetrated the building, but our owner doesn't want to see any vent stacks or any penetrations on the metal roof on the gable end side that shows from the street. And that's probably, it's a pretty good way to go. It's a pretty good rule of thumb too, if you can get your vents on the backside so that your roof, the look of your roof and your roof line is uninterrupted by vent penetrations.
Right.
In this case, that wall is going to drywall all the way up, and we shown, and the ceiling will be shown. And as you can see, all the water pipes that are hot are insulated.
Right. Now, in terms of the water pipe, this is one of these, and I can't tell you which one without following it back to the water heater, but one of these is the hot water line that comes from the water heater when you turn it on. The other one is where it tees and it recirculates back. So that was what I was telling you. We try to stay within 8 to 10 feet of the sink so that you'll get hot water in a relatively short amount of time. Basically, what you can think of that T as like, you can think of that T as that's where your water heater is. Your water heater is right there. It's pretty darn close to the T.
So all these big insulate, all of this right there, that's hot water.
They're all hot water lines.
Copper pipes.
Ismail does such a nice job notching around all the block work. I mean, it's so clean. It's just amazing. You're seeing about as good as.
Really insulated, you know what I mean?
That's right.
You don't have any, you don't see any copper.
The codes change all the time. The code now is that you have to have 1 inch insulation on the pipe. So it's 1 inch, 1 inch thick all the way around. Just tremendous. Doesn't fit very well with a 2x4 wall. It's bigger. It used to be half inch, but it's 1 inch. You can see right here, this piece right here.
Yeah.
He put that piece there just to protect it from the cold water line from the electrical.
Heat up the electrical, you know, too hot. The Rolex, he's got a pretty good size, excuse me, 220 cable going to the Tesla charger, the car charger.
Over here, this is a laundry box, or I'm sorry, a ice maker box that we've installed under the kitchen sink.
Yeah, and or water line to the refrigerator. It could be for drinking water.
That's right.
Power system or a variety of things, right?
That's right. Well, it goes from here through the wall over to the refrigerator location,
This is what, half-inch recipe hose?
which is where? Oh, it's over there.
Yeah. And it runs
Yeah, it's
through this
half-inch.
wall, which is sheared on this side, so you'd be able to see on the other side. And 1.9 pops out, comes over here, and then goes down to here, which is where no, I'm losing my mind. It's I think that's where my batteries went out. It's a Fisher Packel, by the way. So I'm gonna stop that YouTube video and stop the share. Okay, so and then Lindsay and Katie and Linda, if you guys are around for a minute, let's if we could talk just for a bit. When you're done, when we're done here, and we're just about done. I got John Sesser up there again, I swear. So, all right. So now I got the gallery view up, and yeah, I'm sorry I ran over for everybody. And I guess anybody that wants to stay right now, if you have any questions for me, I'll answer any right now. If anybody wants to unmute themselves and ask any questions about the videos you saw. I made a couple of notes, but if there are no questions and you can write them down and ask me later, then I will say, bid you all adieu. Have a great Saturday, have a great weekend. Enjoy the weekend, please stay safe. Enjoy next Wednesday's class, and I'll see you next Saturday with some more exciting on-the-job videos.
All right.
That's right.
Thanks, Rodney.
Say thank you all. Thank you all.
All right. Thanks, Rodney. See you next week.
Thank you. See you next
See you.
week. Always a pleasure. I love to see all your shining, smiling faces. And I love to see your rooms. I love to see your jerseys on the wall. So,
Hey, Rod.
I'm sorry, what was that? Is that a question?
Hey, no, I got a question. I remember I was telling you about that mine where I worked at.
Yes.
You know, Rodney, the only mine when I was working there. We're the only mine in the world. We shut down for 2 weeks because they had so many visitors coming from other countries.